During her appraisal ceremony, a screen reveals her first skill is Tamer, but it's ranked as Starless. She looks up innocently, wondering why her parents are making such terrible, horrified faces at the news. Her father angrily confronts the priest about the meaning of this result, demanding an explanation for her future. The priest explains that while being starless is said to happen to bad people, it was never confirmed here. Her parents react with visible shock and despair upon hearing the priest's words. Suddenly, the appraisal orb glows again, sparking hope as someone questions if she has a second skill. A flashback shows the priest explaining that in Ordoges, children pray to see their skills when they turn 5. The girl reflects on the fact that magic exists in this new world she was born into. She remembers her initial surprise, as the world she lived in before her reincarnation had no magic. She recalls how at 2 years old, her strange behavior caused her family a great deal of worry. This was because she possessed memories of a past life, which a fortune teller identified as reincarnation. The fortune teller wisely advised her not to tell anyone, as being born with memories is incredibly rare. She remembers the kind, knowing smile of the fortune teller, who gave her this important warning. Back in the present, she knows most people have 2 skills, while having 5 is considered a miracle. The Tamer skill, which lets you tame monsters, has its value determined by the number of stars. While 1-star tamers handle mail delivery, multi-star tamers become successful adventurers by taming strong monsters. With this knowledge, the girl stares with wide, anxious eyes as she awaits her second skill's reveal. The appraisal screen materializes once more, but this time it simply displays the words, "No skill." With only a skill weaker than 1 star, she is seen as a being abandoned by God. She realizes that with a starless skill, there's likely no job she can do in this world. Overwhelmed by this grim reality, tears stream down her face as she clenches her teeth in frustration. Leaving the church, she reflects that, in Ordoges, life is dictated by one's skills, making her situation impossible. A sense of dread washes over her as she looks over the village, consumed by worry for her future. Upon returning home, the atmosphere feels heavy and foreboding. She quietly gets ready, putting on her boots for the day ahead. Despite the turmoil, she tries to maintain a brave face while sitting alone on the steps. Hearing loud laughter from downstairs, she rushes to see what is happening. She peeks around the corner, hiding in the shadows, visibly frightened by the scene. Clutching her dress tightly, the sounds of their joy cause her immense pain. Her father laughs without a care, completely ignoring her presence and suffering. A few days later, the family eats a meal together, but she is completely isolated and walks away. The next morning, she wakes up to find that no one bothered to call her for breakfast. Ever since that day, her family has ignored her entirely, even denying her food at the table. Realizing she has been truly abandoned, she grimly accepts her fate. Her father suddenly grabs her shoulder, his face contorted in rage as she cries. He screams at her, claiming she's the reason their family is going through a hard time. Her siblings whisper cruelly, blaming her for their mother's tears and the village gossip. Feeling completely lost and overwhelmed by the betrayal, she no longer understands anything. Driven by an instinct from her past life, she runs into the forest to build stamina and survive. Her past self's survival instincts kick in, urging her to find fruit for sustenance in the forest. While eating the bitter fruit, the voice in her head resolutely tells her to leave the village. She reels from the sour taste, as the inner voice insists she must prepare for what's to come. The voice muses that people everywhere tend to discard what they cannot understand, just like her family did. With grim determination, she questions God and resolves to brace herself for the difficult journey ahead. Overwhelmed by hunger and exhaustion from running, she finally collapses onto the forest floor. Sometime later, she begins to stir, groggily waking up in a daze. She had fainted completely, lying unconscious in a small clearing deep within the woods. Upon waking, she's startled to find the village's fortune teller smiling kindly down at her. She immediately recognizes the woman as the respected elder everyone in the village goes to for advice. Sitting beside the woman, the young girl quietly asks why she came looking for her. The fortune teller explains that her 1-star divination skill predicted this outcome though not its cause. The girl looks down sadly, understanding it was not the woman's fault, but a foretelling of fate. To help her, the fortune teller then offers her a surprising and thoughtful gift. It's an inferior magic bag, which has been stuffed with useful items to help her survive alone. Deeply moved by this unexpected act of kindness, she sincerely thanks the old woman for her help. Following that day, she continued to meet secretly with the fortune teller in the forest several times. During these meetings, the woman provides her with food and potions, becoming her only confidant. She shares a warm, grateful smile with the fortune teller, the one person who showed her compassion. Happily eating a piece of bread, she finds a rare moment of peace with her kind benefactor. Tears stream down her face as she ravenously eats the bread, a rare moment of comfort. The fortune teller offers a gentle, reassuring touch, comforting the startled girl. Sharing a piece of bread, they both smile warmly, forging a bond in the quiet forest. After a year of surviving like this, her life takes another drastic turn. At home, her mother sits in despair, and the girl realizes she can no longer stay there. The sounds of her mother's anguish echo through the house, pushing her further away. As rain begins to pour, it signals the start of her new, isolated existence. Alone and hurt in the downpour, she uncorks a potion given to her by the fortune teller. She begins living hidden in the forest, finding a strange sense of relief in her solitude. Drinking the potion, she vows to avoid all human contact, traumatized by her past experiences. Using the supplies she was given, she starts studying a book to learn how to survive. She meticulously cross-references the book's illustrations to identify safe, non-poisonous fruits to eat. Through trial and error, she learns about poisonous herbs and discovers a section on making potions. The book explains that potions have different effects based on color, like blue for healing wounds. From that point on, she dedicated herself to learning all sorts of new survival skills, starting with concealment. She then learns how to create medicine from herbs and how to build effective traps for hunting. Her efforts pay off as she successfully catches a small animal peeking out from behind a tree. Following the book's instructions, she learns to butcher her prey, feeling an odd restlessness from her past life. That night, she sits by a fire she built herself, roasting the meat she caught. Taking the first bite, her face lights up with the delicious taste of her hard-earned meal. While eating, she's haunted by painful memories of her family's cruel rejection at the dinner table. Time passes as she continues to live her solitary life, training by a river deep in the forest. Her constant running has paid off, significantly improving her stamina over the years of isolation. While out searching for various medicinal herbs, she begins to venture further from her usual territory. She reflects that 3 years have passed, and her foraging has unintentionally brought her close to the town. Now 8 years old, she has adapted well to her life in the forest and feels quite content. Suddenly, she becomes worried, realizing it has been about a month since she last saw the fortune teller. Approaching the village, her attention is drawn to 2 women laughing and gossiping nearby. Feeling a sense of unease, she rushes to the fortune teller's home and knocks, but receives no answer. She peeks inside the empty house, wondering if the villagers assumed the fortune teller had already died. Just then, she catches a snippet of the gossiping women's hushed conversation from outside. Hiding out of sight, she listens carefully as the villagers continue to whisper amongst themselves. She freezes in shock as she hears them mention it was because she got involved with a Starless. The horrifying realization dawns on her that they are talking about her and her kind benefactor. Crouching behind a wall, she tries to process the dreadful implications of the villagers' words. The women's expressions of pity and shock seem to confirm the tragic nature of their story. Blaming herself completely for what happened, she turns and flees the village in despair. Her world crumbles as she learns the awful truth. The fortune teller died from a cold's complications. The image of the fortune teller's empty bed reinforces the grim reality of her lonely death. Devastated by guilt, she collapses to the ground, crushed by the loss of her only friend. She recalls the villagers' whispers, learning that someone had refused to treat the ailing fortune teller. They revealed that the village chief possessed the only life-saving potion, but cruelly withheld it. Her worn boots come to a stop as a grim resolve settles within her. With a single tear tracing a path on her cheek, she solidifies her decision to leave. Returning to her camp, she begins to meticulously gather all the supplies she will need for a long journey. By the riverbank, she carefully organizes and packs her various items for travel. She expertly packs one of her magic bags, ensuring everything fits securely for the road ahead. In total, she has 5 inferior magic bags, determined not to leave behind anything she or her friend gathered. Her final task before leaving is to retrieve a small broken sword she had previously hidden. This leads to a flashback of her preparations, where she began sneaking into the village every 5 days. Perched above the village well, she gathered crucial information and supplies, like dried meat for her departure. While hiding and listening, she is suddenly startled by a conversation taking place nearby. Peeking over a ledge, she overhears someone revealing that she is hiding in the forest. She spots her father talking with a strange, eye-patch-wearing man she has never seen before. The stranger warns her father, Dablo, that she is a source of misfortune for the entire village. With a sinister smile, the man presses the point, asking Dablo if he understands the implications. Her father looks up with a hardened expression and grimly agrees to the stranger's terrible suggestion. Tears well in her eyes as she processes their cruel words, thinking that starless beings shouldn't exist. Her father then draws his sword, his face set with a chillingly determined expression. He declares that she will be happy by God's side as she listens in horror to his murder plot. Fueled by absolute fury at their betrayal, she clenches her fists, refusing to die so easily. Her resolve hardens into pure defiance as she grips the ground, preparing for what she must do. The flashback concludes with the chilling knowledge that the man with her father was the village chief. Knowing her time is short, she sprints through the forest with purpose, away from the village. Her feet tear through the undergrowth in a desperate, frantic dash toward her final objective. She completely dismisses her father's twisted words, pushing herself to run even faster. With grim determination, she vows to survive as she makes a beeline for a specific massive tree. A memory surfaces of the fortune teller, showing her a large hollow in the tree's base as a hiding spot. Following her friend's advice, she reaches into the hollow to retrieve the items she had stashed away. Her fingers wrap around the familiar hilt of the small broken sword she had hidden there. With the sword now in hand, she possesses the last item she needs for her escape. She clutches the precious memento to her chest, overcome with emotion, but ready for the journey. In a flashback, the fortune teller gives her the sword, having picked it out just for her size. Just as she is about to depart, the flickering light of a distant torch captures her attention. Her heart sinks as she whispers in terror, realizing that the villagers have finally found her. She recognizes this location as one of her sleeping spots, the one dangerously close to the village. Despite the imminent danger, her expression remains one of cold, calculating determination instead of fear. Turning her back on the village for the last time, she makes a silent vow to never return. While fleeing deeper into the woods, she resolves to be far more careful when choosing her next home. Suddenly, she stops dead in her tracks, a terrifying thought making her realize the situation is very bad. Fleeing in panic, she frantically searches for a tree to climb, too terrified to look back at her pursuer. She remembers being chased by monsters ever since leaving Latomi village, even losing her hidden sword in her desperation. The very thought of being captured after coming so far fills her with an irritating, unyielding resolve. Several difficult days pass as she presses on with her solitary journey through the wilderness. On the morning of the 8th day, she cautiously observes a small settlement from the forest's edge. Her attention is drawn to 2 children walking away from the village towards a more secluded area. The children hurry towards a trash heap, apparently eager to dispose of something they are carrying. To her surprise, she watches them open a chest and carelessly discard numerous valuable-looking potions. Concealed behind a tree, she waits patiently for the children to finish and leave the area. Once the coast is clear, she quietly approaches the pile of discarded items to investigate. She soon finds herself struggling under the immense weight of 10 magic bags she recovered from the dump. After walking for an hour, she collapses from exhaustion, the heavy bags tumbling down around her. Catching her breath, she muses that, while finding the bags was lucky, carrying all 10 is impossible. She decides to reorganize her luggage, planning to keep the useful potions the kids threw away. While sorting, she discovers 6 of the new bags have a larger capacity, though one lacks weight reduction. After consolidating everything into one of the better bags, she is pleased that it still has plenty of room. A memory surfaces of the fortune teller explaining how superior magic bags have time-stopping abilities for potions. She continues her trek, reflecting on the 8 grueling days since leaving Latomi and her many close calls. She vividly recalls being chased by monsters drawn to her dried meat, forcing her to climb a massive tree. Just as she reflects on past dangers, a small slime monster drops from above, startling her once more. Resuming her journey, she cautiously walks along a path, her recent encounters making her more wary than ever. While she rummages through her bag, the small slime from before rustles up beside her. Instead of attacking, she calmly pours the contents of a bottle, apparently some kind of food, onto the creature. Peeking from cover, she sees a man feeding his own slime, realizing he must be a tamer. Her eyes sparkle with curiosity as she watches the tamer interact with his docile monster. She then notices a full adventurer party nearby, recalling the law that requires teams to have a slime tamer. The fact that she didn't notice them sooner unnerves her, as their faint presence is a bit scary. Hiding again, she concludes they must be high-rank adventurers, who likely already sensed her presence. Feeling flustered and intimidated by their skill, she quickly backs away to avoid any trouble. She also spots another pair of travelers leaving, their strange cloaks catching her eye for a moment. Deciding not to risk another encounter, she resolves to stick close to the main road for now. As she continues her trek along a ridge, she wonders how much longer it will be to the next village. On the morning of the 4th day, the rising sun illuminates a strange sight in the distance. Her path is blocked by a massive pile of discarded adventurer equipment, broken weapons, and other refuse. She recognizes it as a dump for adventurers, but is confused since there is no village nearby. She walks through the vast, illegal dump site, created because small villages can't afford proper tamer contracts for disposal. Unlike the last dump, she finds nothing useful here, as all the discarded potions have expired. This reminds her that few adventurer parties, typically S rank, have slimes capable of dissolving inorganic waste. She briefly considers leaving her own excess items here, thinking no one would ever notice. However, her past self's conscience stops her, and she decides to wait for the next village's dump instead. As the day winds down, she begins searching for a suitable place to spend the night safely. Hearing a sudden rustle in the undergrowth, she sets a trap, hoping to catch something for dinner. After placing the trap, she stands and listens, remaining vigilant to the sounds of the forest. An unusual quiet then descends upon the woods, making her feel that something is amiss. Disappointed, she realizes there are no animals nearby, meaning her trap will likely remain empty. Forced to find another solution for safety, she approaches a large tree, planning to climb it. As she expertly scales the trunk, she is glad she had the forethought to gather some fruit earlier. Settling into a secure spot high in the branches, she begins to eat her meager meal. While eating, she grows concerned, noting that her supply of dried meat is running dangerously low. The sun sets completely, blanketing the forest in darkness as she prepares to rest for the night. Weary from her travels, she eventually manages to fall asleep while perched precariously in the tree. However, her sleep is cut short when a strange noise from the forest floor awakens her. She listens intently, trying to place the sound that disturbed her rest in the dead of night. Her eyes snap open in alarm as the sound becomes clearer, identifying it as approaching footsteps. Carefully, she peers down from her hiding spot, trying to see who or what is moving below. A look of sheer terror crosses her face as she witnesses the source of the disturbance. Paralyzed with fear, she desperately debates whether to stay hidden or make a run for it. Meanwhile, the sound of something large crashing through the bushes grows louder and closer. Whatever it is, it moves through the dense undergrowth with terrifying and unnatural speed. She breaks into a cold sweat, knowing with certainty that she cannot possibly outrun it. Frozen in her hiding spot, she knows that any movement will alert the terrifying creatures below. The creatures tear through the forest at an impossible speed, a blur of deadly motion in the dark. Under the pale light of the full moon, the sounds of the horde continue unabated throughout the night. Tears of absolute terror stream from her eyes as she remains trapped, witnessing the scene below. Peering down from the tree, she finally sees the source of the commotion, a massive swarm of giant insects. She identifies them as huge ants, remembering the entry from the survival guide she diligently studied. Her book described them as nimble monsters that hunt in swarms of several dozen, a formidable threat. She correctly deduces that she has unfortunately camped for the night, right next to a huge ant burrow. The ant swarm continues its rampage on the forest floor, forcing her to remain hidden and wait. She watches cautiously from a distance as the swarm moves on, waiting for the path to clear. As the sun begins to rise, the immediate danger finally passes, allowing her a moment of relief. Following the path, her long and perilous journey finally leads her to the entrance of a new town. From a high vantage point, she sees that it's a large, bustling town, a welcome sight. She enters the lively marketplace, taking in the sights and sounds of a thriving community. Making her way through the crowd, she approaches a butcher shop to replenish her dwindling food supplies. Disguised as an old woman, she completes her purchase, and the friendly butcher thanks her. She carefully counts out the coins from her pouch to pay for the much-needed provisions. The butcher works diligently at his stall, surrounded by various cuts of meat hanging for sale. After her purchase, a small, timid voice calls out to get the butcher's attention. The butcher is surprised to see a small child offering to sell him wild mouse meat. The young girl nervously presents her neatly wrapped packages of wild mouse meat to the butcher. The 5 bundles are presented carefully, showing the great effort she put into her first business transaction. The butcher looks surprised, but intrigued by the child's offer, carefully examining her presented wares. She recalls wrapping the 5 mice in sterilizing leaves, knowing a neat appearance is very important for sales. She knows this town sees many travelers, and that nutritious wild mouse meat is a popular item for them. With so many adventurers around, she correctly predicted that an outsider selling game wouldn't seem too suspicious. After a moment of careful inspection, a faint smile of approval appears on the butcher's face. Declaring the meat is fresh, the butcher holds up a coin, and her eyes widen with hopeful anticipation. Impressed by the quality, he happily offers to buy everything from her for a total of 100 dal. He pays her and encourages her to return, explaining that wild mouse meat has become a rare commodity. With her first sale successfully completed, she quietly makes her way out of the bustling town. Safely back at the forest's edge, she sits down and lets out a deep sigh of relief and accomplishment. She clasps her payment, overcome with emotion, realizing this is the first money she has earned herself. Tears of joy well in her eyes as she stares in absolute wonder at the coin in her hand. The single, shining coin represents a monumental step towards her independence and survival in this new world. A new sense of determination fills her as she savors this profound moment of personal victory and success. Having secured some funds, she continues her journey onward to find a new, safe place to live. She returns to the town, now navigating the lively, festive streets with newfound confidence and purpose. A genuine smile lights up her face as she confidently walks through the marketplace, feeling secure. She happily explores the town's back alleys, no longer just hiding, but actively engaging with her surroundings. After 3 days of trapping, she happily reflects on her success, having caught a total of 24 wild mice. Her strategy works because profitable tusked boars scare mice into predictable paths, which are perfect for her traps. With a steady step forward, she feels a renewed sense of purpose and hope for what's to come. Selling the meat provides a steady income, allowing her the small luxury of thinking about her future. She navigates the crowded market, blending in with the boisterous adventurers and locals going about their day. Observing the lively scene from the sidelines, she notes to herself just how busy the town is. She returns to the butcher's shop, where the friendly owner greets her with a warm welcome. Presenting a large new batch of wild mice, she eagerly asks if he is willing to purchase them. The butcher agrees, explaining that with merchants moving soon, the demand for dried meat is currently very high. He adds that a recent sighting of tusked boar has drawn all the local hunters away from smaller game. Because of this, he happily pays her an increased price of 550 dal for her entire catch. The butcher then asks if she'd like to purchase some dried meat for her own journey. While making her purchase, she mentions that she is planning to travel to another village soon. The butcher listens to her plans with a thoughtful, considerate expression, taking in her words. As a gesture of gratitude for her consistent business, he turns to prepare a parting gift. He generously gives her enough provisions to last for 10 days on the road, for which she is thankful. As a final offer, he sells her a large bowl of dried meat scraps for just 100 dal. Leaving the town behind, she returns to the relative safety and solitude of the quiet forest. While packing her new supplies, she remembers the butcher's warning of a large-scale hunt in the forest tonight. She sits down to enjoy a luxurious dinner, hoping the hunt will successfully cull the tusked boar population. She sorts through her salvaged items, carefully uncorking a potion she found in the village dump. Deciding to stay in the village's camp for poor adventurers, she worries about a potion's strange color. Holding her bag strap, she takes a moment to get her bearings and process her new surroundings. While organizing her belongings, she is surprised to find a folded piece of paper tucked away. It turns out to be a hand-drawn map of the local area, though she questions its accuracy. Her scavenging continues to be successful, as she also finds some clothes that are not too dirty. To make room for her new finds, she pragmatically decides to leave some of her own unneeded items behind. A small, content smile appears on her face, pleased with her resourcefulness and successful scavenging. She returns to the camp, deciding to leave in the morning, since the forest is dangerous tonight. As evening falls, a large group of adventurers assembles and marches out of town for the boar hunt. She arrives at the communal kitchen in the nearly deserted square, noting the hunt is about to begin. She settles at a table to eat, while another adventurer begins making his own dinner nearby. Using what little magic she can muster, she carefully levitates her food over the cooking fire. However, her magic proves too weak to cook properly, forcing her to rely on magic stones instead. With the stones providing heat, her 2 wild mouse skewers begin to sizzle nicely over the grill. She sits down to enjoy her dinner of grilled skewers and a rice ball wrapped in banana leaves. While eating, she suddenly remembers the map and decides it is a good time to inspect it further. The map clearly marks her current location in Latone and shows the closest village is named Latoto. Although the route seems straightforward, she remains wary, knowing she can't fully trust a discarded map. This reminds her of a cherished memory of the kind fortune teller patiently teaching her how to draw. The next day, the entire town erupts in celebration, with adventurers raising their mugs in a rowdy toast. Leaving the camp, she is disgusted by the overwhelming stench of alcohol, even though it's still morning. The drunken revelry of the adventurers confirms her suspicion that the big tusked boar hunt was a major success. She is utterly shocked to see the massive size of the captured boar being paraded through the street. As she exits the town gate, she worries about the terrifying possibility of encountering such a beast on her journey. She stumbles on the uneven path, beginning her trek out of the town and back into the wilderness. While climbing, she notes that the mountain road leading from this village is much more difficult than the last. Despite the rough journey ahead, she fondly recalls the kindness she experienced in the lively town. She reflects on the butcher who, unlike others, bought her meat at a fair price without any questions. Walking away, she regrets not being able to thank him properly, feeling he must have understood her circumstances. 3 days after leaving Latone, she follows the map towards Latoto, eating a snack as she travels. Her journey leads her through a beautiful field filled with vibrant blooming flowers of various kinds. She eventually arrives at the shore of a serene, expansive lake where she decides to take a rest. While sitting by the water's edge, several small, jelly-like creatures suddenly hop out from the nearby grass. Her expression becomes wary as she immediately identifies the approaching creatures as wild slimes. She recalls that untamed slimes are dangerous monsters, though they can be defeated with basic fire magic. This triggers a painful memory of her younger brother, proudly showing their mother he could create fire. Her family had praised him, explaining that his magic capacity would increase with consistent training. She remembers being completely ignored, a stark contrast to the attention her siblings always received. In a flashback, she sits alone, trying to use magic, but only manages to produce a tiny, fleeting spark. She recalls that slimes typically attack by tackling or shooting sticky projectiles at their enemies. With virtually no magic energy, she knows her only viable option against such monsters is to flee. After successfully evading the slimes, she cautiously peeks out from the safety of the woods. However, she feels a strange stillness in the air, causing her to pause and assess the situation. Her heart leaps into her throat as a massive, unusual-looking slime suddenly emerges behind her. Completely baffled by its strange appearance and immense size, she can only wonder what it is. She cautiously circles the large creature, which remains placid and unmoving on the forest floor. Clutching her survival guide, a memory about a specific type of slime begins to surface in her mind. The creature before her wobbles slightly, appearing far less threatening than a normal monster should be. She vaguely recalls reading about a creature nicknamed the Broken Slime in her survival book. The peculiar slime continues its gentle, almost clumsy movements, further piquing her curiosity and easing her fear. The book described it as a rare, nameless slime so incredibly fragile it disappears when simply touched. Contemplating this, she gathers her resolve, wondering if this giant creature is truly that weak. A small, relieved smile appears on her face as she confirms the monster poses no immediate threat. Amused by the absurd situation, she playfully considers poking the giant slime to test the theory. She imagines reaching out to touch the creature and watching it dissolve into a cloud of particles. The thought of such a large creature being so incredibly weak seems almost too strange to be true. Before she can act on her curiosity, the huge slime surprises her by affectionately nuzzling her hand. Breathing a heavy sigh of relief, she looks at the gentle giant with wonder and amazement. She laughs at the absurdity of the moment, wondering what she's doing, befriending a giant monster. Seeing a kindred spirit in the weak creature, she decides to call it a broken slime. Feeling an unexpected bond with the gentle monster, she wonders if she could possibly tame it. With her resolve steeled, she decides to go through with the taming attempt, despite her own weakness. She suddenly realizes she has no idea how to tame a monster, and frantically consults her survival guide. Clutching the book, her heart pounds with a mix of excitement and anxiety as she prepares. The first step is to transfer a small amount of her magic energy into the slime. She gently places her finger on the creature, focusing on channeling her very limited magic. The slime wobbles and ripples as her magic flows into it, beginning the taming process. Her eyes widen in absolute disbelief and joy as she realizes the slime has accepted her magic. She recalls her own self-given name, Ivy, a plant that stays strong even when stepped on. According to the guide, she must now state her own name and then bestow one upon the slime. Struggling to find the perfect name, she briefly considers naming it based on its color. She dismisses the simple idea, wanting to find a name with more meaning for her new companion. Inspired by the vast sky above, she introduces herself as Ivy and names the slime Sora. The moment it is named, Sora begins to glow with a brilliant light and morph into a new form. A wing-like appendage sprouts from its body as the transformation continues at a rapid pace. The light subsides, and the newly transformed Sora lands gently back on the forest floor before her. Overcome with emotion and blushing with pride, she realizes she has successfully tamed her first monster. Amid her celebration, a sudden, alarming memory about this particular slime causes her to gasp in horror. She remembers the book confirmed that this rare, incredibly weak slime is fated to disappear within a day. Her joy turns to sorrow as she asks her new friend if it is truly fated to disappear tomorrow. Sora wobbles in response, its simple gesture leaving her completely unsure of its fate or feelings. The slime jiggles again, a wing-like appendage still prominently displayed on its otherwise simple form. As sparkles of light continue to emanate from Sora, it shows no signs of fading away yet. She realizes that despite what she read, there is still a great deal she doesn't know about Sora. Watching her new companion with a hopeful gaze, she is filled with wonder at the mysteries it holds. Unsure of what to do next, she finds herself locked in a silent staring contest with the slime. After many minutes of this strange standoff, she begins to question what exactly she is doing. The silent staring continues, with neither she nor the slime making any move to break the silence. Finally breaking the stalemate, she decides to head to the next village, resolving to keep Sora hidden. As she travels through the woods, her attention is suddenly caught by the sounds of a nearby battle. Peeking through the trees, she witnesses an adventurer party engaged in a fierce fight with a giant snake. She overhears the adventurers complaining, wondering if there are always so many snakes in the Latoto area. Taking this new information to heart, she continues on her journey with a heightened sense of caution. She finally arrives at her destination, the quiet and rustic Latoto village, surprising a local. Approaching a new butcher, she once again offers to sell her supply of hunted wild mice. The butcher agrees to the sale, but gives her a stern warning about the dangerous snakes in the area. She listens intently, understanding that the local hunters have also been complaining about the snake problem. Despite the danger, the butcher encourages her, promising to buy any mice she manages to hunt. With this new goal in mind, she heads back into the forest, ready to face its challenges. Near the village dump, she apologizes to Sora for having to keep it hidden from everyone. Finding a secluded spot, she takes Sora out of her bag, telling it that it's safe now. She then sheepishly admits that in her haste, she accidentally put Sora in her designated trash bag. She explains her caution, worried about what might happen if anyone near Latoto saw such a rare slime. Deciding to organize her belongings at the village dump, she apologizes again for the mix-up. While sorting through her supplies, she begins to place spoiled potions into her magic trash bag. As the spoiled items enter the bag, Sora, who is still inside, begins to glow with a mysterious light. A moment later, she looks inside the bag, completely surprised by an unexpected discovery. Sitting beside Sora, she remembers putting 13 expired blue potions into her trash bag for disposal. However, upon checking the bag again, she is completely baffled to find it is now empty. She meticulously inspects the bag for holes but finds none, leaving her utterly confused by the mystery. Suddenly realizing what might have happened, she quickly runs back to where she left Sora. Upon her return, Sora lets out a small burp, confirming it had eaten all the spoiled potions. She then realizes that with all her new supplies, she no longer has room to carry Sora. Sora looks sad as she laments not being able to put it back in the full trash bag. With a gentle and reassuring smile, she asks her new slime companion to be patient a little longer. She discovers that while living things normally can't enter magic bags, Sora is a unique exception. This provides a simple solution, allowing her to keep Sora safely hidden with her at all times. Now able to move around unnoticed, she hides in the bushes to observe some adventurers in the forest. She watches as the party carries its latest kill, a large snake, confirming the butcher's earlier warning. She notices small animals have returned, realizing the huge ant threat must have passed, making the forest safer. This leads her to overhear an adventurer concluding that the local snakes must not be very strong predators. Feeling more secure, she decides it's safe to rest and plans to gather information in the village tomorrow. Her slime companion Sora bounces happily beside her, seemingly content and full of energy in their new spot. Ivy watches her new friend with a warm, affectionate smile, cherishing this peaceful moment together. Her moment of peace is interrupted as she remembers her task and resumes reorganizing her magic bag. While sorting, a sudden realization dawns on her, her eyes widening with a mix of confusion and concern. She frantically rummages through her belongings, searching for items she knows should be there. Dumping the contents out, she frantically searches for the missing items, growing more puzzled by the second. Finding nothing, she sits in disbelief, realizing that once again, things have vanished from her bag. She specifically recalls the 13 spoiled blue potions she had stored away for disposal in the dump. A flashback confirms she collected them, but now they are inexplicably gone from her bag. Panicked by this strange occurrence, she calls out to Sora, suspecting it might be involved. To test her theory, she sets out potions, knowing slimes should only be able to consume one type of matter. With a nervous heart, she watches Sora intently, waiting to see how it reacts to the experiment. Sora bounces eagerly, seemingly ready and willing to consume the items placed before it. In a flash, Sora extends its body towards the line of potion bottles on the ground. With surprising speed, the small slime completely engulfs the entire row of potion bottles in one go. The bottles become visible inside Sora's translucent body as it begins the process of absorption. One by one, the potions start to dissolve inside Sora, confirming its unique and mysterious ability. Ivy stares in awe as the many potion bottles completely vanish inside Sora's translucent body. She praises Sora, amazed by its unique ability to eat both organic and inorganic materials without issue. After letting out a small burp, the insatiable slime immediately looks up as if asking for more. Despite her hesitation about feeding it more spoiled potions, Sora eagerly reaches out to consume them anyway. The glass bottles and their foul contents completely dissolve within Sora's body in a magical flash. Having finished its unexpected meal, Sora wobbles contently, now surrounded by a faint, sparkling aura. Ivy suddenly realizes with a horrified gasp that her own personal portion of potions is now gone. She makes a firm mental note to always secure her own healing potions before feeding Sora in the future. She playfully asks her new companion if it's finally satisfied, and the slime wobbles happily in response. Her gentle smile quickly shifts to one of complete and utter surprise at Sora's next peculiar action. This surprise then turns to wide-eyed shock as she tries to comprehend what is happening before her. Completely baffled by the slime's strange behavior, she sweats nervously, questioning what is truly going on. She observes that the mysterious Sora truly moves at its own pace as it begins to spit something out. However, a gentle and fond smile crosses her face as she watches her new friend with deep curiosity. Her gaze remains fixed on Sora's simple form, watching intently as it prepares to reveal another secret. Lying peacefully on the forest floor, she quietly asks Sora if it is still hiding something from her. That night, she sets up her small, solitary camp under the stars, her mind full of hopeful questions. The sun rises on a brand new day, bringing with it a heavy sense of nervous anticipation. As she begins to stir, she admits to herself that she was deeply worried Sora would have disappeared. Her fears are immediately erased as she finds Sora still there, greeting it with a bright, joyful smile. She notices small animals have returned, realizing the huge ant swarm must have cleared the area completely. This makes her wonder if the local snakes aren't that strong, since other wildlife isn't afraid. Feeling much safer, she reassures Sora and decides to gather more information in the village tomorrow. Beside her, Sora bounces contentedly on the ground, seemingly carefree and happy in the moment. Ivy can't help but smile warmly, her anxieties eased by her new companion's simple happiness. With renewed spirits, she decides to get back to work and continue reorganizing her various magic bags. As she organizes, a look of focused curiosity appears on her face, her eyes fixed on her bag. Suddenly, she begins frantically pulling items out of her bag, a sense of urgency in her movements. She holds the now empty bag open, looking inside with a completely bewildered expression on her face. Completely confused, she sits beside Sora, wondering if items have mysteriously disappeared from her bag again. She specifically recalls the batch of expired blue potions that she had salvaged from the village dump. A quick check confirms her suspicion. The potions she had collected earlier are now gone too. Calling out to Sora, she feels completely baffled, unable to explain the strange, recurring phenomenon. Her thoughts are interrupted as Sora nudges her bag, reminding her it's time for it to be fed. She stares in amazement, wondering how Sora could possibly know about the items she had hidden inside. After 3 exhausting days of setting traps, she breathes a sigh of relief, finally achieving her goal. Her patience paid off, as she successfully caught 2 wild mice at the same time in one trap. Despite her success, she is incredibly sleepy and struggles to keep her eyes open, fighting off exhaustion. She motivates herself to stay awake, knowing she still has to butcher the mice and sell the snakes. Upon returning to the village, she looks up at a building, a look of sudden realization on her face. Upon returning to the village, she is immediately recognized by the friendly butcher from the previous town. She offers to sell him more wild mice, and he readily agrees to purchase her entire catch. He then notices the other bag she is carrying and asks if she has also caught a snake. Impressed by her hunting prowess, he praises her for her hard work, mistakenly calling her a boy. Ivy pauses for a moment, slightly surprised by his assumption, but chooses not to correct him. He pays her 260 dal, and she reflects that being mistaken for a boy is safer for a lone traveler. After her successful sale, she proceeds to the local chemist's shop with her rattling bag of snakes. Inside, she calls out to the chemist, offering to sell him the live snakes she has captured. A stern-looking man with long, dark hair turns from his work to address the young child. He questions her about her parents or partners, to which she bravely replies that she is alone. After a moment of consideration, the chemist agrees to inspect her catch, reaching for the bag. Ivy nervously presents the wriggling bag to the man, hoping for another successful transaction. The chemist carefully unties the bag, preparing to examine the live, venomous snakes held within. He expertly handles one of the snakes, holding it firmly behind the head to inspect its quality. Impressed, he comments on the snake's large size, fresh condition, and good color as Ivy watches anxiously. He offers her a generous price, including an extra giddle for one of the snakes being a rare female. Ivy is shocked by the offer, quickly calculating that a giddle is equivalent to 100 dal coins. She stares in disbelief at the 5 gadal he offers, a sum far greater than she ever expected. Overjoyed, she thanks him profusely, and he explains that rare female snakes are always in high demand. With her business successfully concluded, she leaves the village and returns to the tranquility of the forest. Overjoyed by her massive earnings, she giggles to herself, feeling a true sense of accomplishment and security. Realizing just how much money she made, she tells Sora it's time to head back to the forest. Back at her camp, she begins sorting through the numerous discarded potions she found at the dump. She finds many simple blue potions, wondering if village children are practicing alchemy and discarding their failures. Before she can think further, Sora lunges forward, eagerly preparing to devour the entire pile of potions. She learns that Sora just ate 58 potions, confirming that slime appetites vary greatly between individuals. That night, she feels a disconnect, unable to understand Sora despite her book saying, "Tamers and monsters share a bond." The following day, she struggles to stay awake, letting out a massive yawn as exhaustion takes over. Feeling sleepy while watching her snake trap, she considers giving up to focus on hunting wild mice instead. Her hunting proves difficult, as the abundance of snakes has driven away the mice and broken her traps. Despite the setbacks, her persistence pays off, and she manages to catch and prepare 3 mice for sale. Returning to the village, her attention is drawn to a commotion coming from the local adventurers guild. Inside, an official excitedly shouts to the assembled crowd, announcing that they've just received a new message. He declares a new official request to hunt snakes, which immediately piques Ivy's interest. Later, she approaches a different butcher stall, where she is greeted by a kind woman. Ivy offers to sell her wild mouse meat, and the woman seems surprised by the young child's request. The woman reveals her husband told her about a child selling meat, and Ivy realizes she is the butcher's wife. Impressed by the neat packaging, she comments that it's much better prepared than what adventurers usually bring. She offers a fair price of 330 dal for all 3 packages, which Ivy gratefully accepts. While leaving, she overhears other customers complaining that the village chief isn't doing enough about the snake infestation. Overwhelmed by the butcher's wife's incessant chatter, Ivy is happy but finds herself unable to get away. The woman's husband finally appears, providing a welcome interruption as she gossips about the upcoming snake hunt. Grateful for the sale, Ivy makes a hasty and relieved escape from the talkative woman's clutches. She considers leaving immediately, but reconsiders, realizing her lack of blue potions makes travel too risky. With only 3 potions left, she knows she needs at least 50 to feel secure on the road. To solve this, she returns to the village dump, where she successfully finds a large stash of practice potions. Now, with 37 potions, she calculates it's enough for both herself and Sora during their journey. Before leaving, she begins setting up traps for one final hunt to gather provisions for the road. During her preparations, she forages some sweet fruit, a perfect snack for when she gets tired. Having set an unprecedented 30 traps, she runs out of rope and notes her clothes are getting tight. While wishing for new supplies, she continues her work, unaware of Sora's mischievous intentions nearby. Suddenly, Sora lunges at her supply bag, and she desperately yells for it to stop. She scolds her slime companion, sternly reminding it that those supplies are for their travels. Sora throws a tantrum, but Ivy stands firm, refusing to give in to its demands. As a compromise, she offers Sora one of the less valuable green potions to calm it down. However, Sora stares at the green potion with a look of complete disinterest, refusing to eat it. Confused by its pickiness, she asks if it doesn't want the potion she's offering as a treat. The slime turns away and continues to sulk, leaving Ivy to call its name in exasperation. The next day, she checks her traps and is pleased to find 9 wild mice and 1 snake. While in the village, she overhears a man talking about a huge swarm of snakes that was moving erratically last night. She realizes the dangerous snake swarm actually made it much easier to trap the fleeing wild mice. Suddenly, one of the captured snakes thrashes wildly, startling her and nearly making her drop the bag. Regaining her composure, she decides to head into town to sell the valuable snake first. She returns to the chemist's shop, finding the stern-looking man busy at work behind his counter. The chemist turns from his task, his expression thoughtful as he sees the small child approaching. He recognizes her, once again mistaking her for a boy, and asks if she has more snakes to sell. She explains that she wants to sell them now, as their quality will drop after the adventurer's big hunt. The bag suddenly jolts with life, prompting the chemist to comment on another lively catch. Blushing from the unexpected praise, she becomes flustered when he calls her a good hunter. He explains that her healthy, intact snakes are far better for making medicine than adventurers' tattered ones. Back in the forest, she tells Sora she has finished preparing the mice and must return to the village. She fondly remembers his kind words and sincere thanks, a memory that brings a warm smile to her face. Even if it was just flattery, his praise made her genuinely happy and motivated to continue her work. As the sun begins to set, she tells a sleeping Sora that she is heading into the village. From the cover of the dense forest, she watches a party of adventurers prepare for the nightly snake hunt. She arrives at the bustling night market, relieved and grateful to have made it just in time. The butcher is pleased to see her, noting that with everyone hunting snakes, mouse meat is now rare. Because of the new scarcity, he happily pays her an increased price of 1,080 dal for her catch. He thanks her again, explaining how meat prices have soared due to the ongoing snake infestation. Overwhelmed by her success and their gratitude, she stands quietly for a moment, processing her good fortune. Amid the bustle of the night market, she suddenly realizes she forgot to buy dried meat. Dejectedly, she begins to walk away, passing by some heavily armored adventurers in the street. However, a memory of the chemist's praise for her lively catch flashes through her mind. She then warmly recalls the sincere gratitude expressed by the friendly butcher and his wife. Filled with a sudden burst of happy confidence, she decisively turns back towards the stalls. A bright, joyful blush spreads across her face, buoyed by their kindness and her recent successes. She admits to herself that all the positive attention is making her a little too excited. Leaving the village for good, she reflects on all the surprises Latoto had to offer her. At the town gate the next morning, she's shocked to see massive sacks filled with captured snakes. The butcher's wife gives her a package of meat, making her realize just how dangerous the forest was. With her business finally concluded, the kind butcher and his wife wave a fond farewell to her. Having left Latoto behind, she continues her solitary journey down the long road ahead. Taking a deep breath of fresh air, she feels a sense of freedom, with Sora peeking out. A gentle smile graces her face as she walks on, feeling hopeful for the future. With a newfound sense of purpose, she picks up her pace, eager to move forward. With a final glance back at the town gate, she steels her resolve, ready to depart. Now deep in the woods, she checks her supplies, noting she has 5 potions left for Sora. 6 long days pass as she continues her trek ever deeper into the vast wilderness. She notes that despite one close call with a monster, her journey has been going smoothly. Suddenly, her thoughts are interrupted by a distinct jiggle from her bag as Sora begins to stir. Believing she is close to the next village, she calls out to a suddenly silent Sora. She pulls the slime from her bag, a worried expression on her face as it remains still. Sora then begins to vibrate in her hands, emitting a low, strange hum that surprises her. Her attention is suddenly diverted as she catches the unmistakable scent of something burning in the distance. Acting on instinct, she quickly leaps down from a rocky ledge to investigate the source. Peeking out from behind a bush, she discovers a horrifying scene of a still smoldering, destroyed wagon. The full scope of the carnage reveals dead bodies scattered among the debris, and she backs away. Noticing the deep gashes on the victims, she realizes this was the brutal work of monsters. A wave of absolute terror washes over her as the grim reality of the massacre sinks in. Driven by fear, she turns and bolts from the gruesome scene without a second thought. She sprints all the way to the town hall in Latomu, determined to alert the authorities. Her frantic report is met with disbelief as an official demands to know which road she's talking about. She urgently explains the attack occurred on the road to Latoto, less than 30 minutes away. Her alarming news immediately sends the town hall into a flurry of urgent activity and preparation. Amid the commotion, she looks up, startled, as a group of adventurers begins to approach her. One of the heavily armored men takes a deliberate step forward, singling her out from the crowd. The scarred adventurer looks down at her with a grim expression, demanding information about the monsters. Her mind flashes back to a happier time, excitedly showing Sora a pile of potions from a dump. She then recalls organizing her bags at the dump, telling an impatient Sora to wait for her. Back in the present, an official confirms her report, and the rescue party prepares to mobilize. A fox-like familiar leaps into action, joining the hastily assembled rescue party. The official orders them to find the location and monster type, posting it as a designation quest. As the party rushes out, Ivy watches them go, left behind with the scarred adventurer. The adventurer mutters about the monsters, his expression grim as they wait in the now quiet hall. She looks up at him with sincere gratitude, simply thanking him for his help and consideration. An official then asks if they can pay her information fee after the investigation, and she nervously agrees. The clerk dismisses her for now, telling her to return the next day to collect her payment. She peeks back one last time before finally leaving the now bustling town hall. Outside, she reflects on the unexpected news that she'll be paid for reporting the monster attack. She returns to the town dump, surprised about the reward, and decides to sort potions for Sora. She happily presents a huge basket of discarded potions to Sora, who eagerly prepares to eat. She had high hopes for finding so many potions here, since the town was full of adventurers. Suddenly, a thought occurs to her, making her pause and reconsider Sora's recent behavior. She realizes Sora hadn't complained about getting fewer potions, concluding it must have been very hungry. Thankfully, she finds that the town's dump still has plenty of blue potions left to gather. Fearing the monsters are dangerous, she stocks up on potions in case she must stay in the village. Sora then wiggles energetically in its basket, surprising her with its newfound mobility. Noting how much more it has moved lately, she begins to wonder if this is a sign of growth. Given the danger, she decides it is safest to rest in the town's Adventurer Square for the night. Preparing to enter the town proper, she apologetically asks Sora to hide inside her bag again. Sora puffs itself up proudly, then suddenly leaps high into the air with a surprising burst of energy. Completely taken aback by this sudden display of vigor, Ivy can only stare, a blush creeping up her face. Her mind races as she processes the impossible. Her incredibly weak slime, Sora, just jumped. The following day, she returns to the imposing town hall to follow up on her report. A clerk informs her that since the monsters from her report have been identified, she can be paid. She receives a massive reward, 2 Radal for the monster info, and 5 Geedle for the merchants' bodies. Her eyes widen as she realizes the Radal are huge gold coins, a sum beyond her wildest dreams. With her reward on the counter, she notices the hall is now filled with tense, high-rank adventurers. She overhears that during their investigation, a team spotted the monsters far from the attack site. One of the adventurers impatiently demands to know exactly what kind of monsters they are dealing with. The answer sends a chill down her spine. The culprits were a group of ogres and an ogre king. The adventurers conclude there must be an ogre nest nearby, and decide they must act immediately. Clutching her bag, she stares at the gold coins, the immense danger and wealth making her sweat. She quietly accepts the payment, her mind still reeling from the terrifying news she just overheard. Leaving the tense town hall, she walks through the city streets, trying to process everything. However, she clutches her new coin pouch tightly, unable to calm her pounding heart. Overwhelmed by the weight of her new fortune, she realizes that carrying gold coins is absolutely terrifying. She fears being targeted for her money, but can't use the guild without revealing her starless skill. The merchant guild is an option, but without any goods to sell, she is unable to register. Returning to the adventurer's camp, she despairs over what she can possibly do with the dangerous gold coins. She consults her book, realizing her plan to leave is ruined because the forest is too dangerous. A terrifying ogre king appears in her thoughts, confirming she cannot risk an encounter in the wild. Deciding on her next move, she heads for the Adventurer Square, where cheap inns are located. The close proximity of so many people makes her deeply uncomfortable as she walks through the crowd. At the lively camp, she worries the constant noise will prevent her from getting any real rest. Overwhelmed by the chaotic energy of the adventurers, she tries to navigate through the dense crowd. A sudden idea strikes her as she looks for a way to escape the overwhelming commotion. With renewed purpose, she walks away from the main camp in search of a quieter location. She arrives at a less crowded area with stables, hoping to find a peaceful spot to rest. Cautiously, she peeks around a corner, looking for a place where she can be completely alone. The constant need to stay vigilant and hidden leaves her feeling anxious and perpetually on edge. Pushing through the bustling crowd, she desperately searches for somewhere quiet to settle down for the night. Looking over the now packed camp, she realizes how lucky she was that it was empty yesterday. Finding a secluded corner, she decides it's a safe place to discreetly feed Sora inside her bag. As she prepares to feed her companion, a gentle rustling sound emanates from her magic bag. She carefully presents a potion to a happy Sora, who peeks out of the bag for its meal. She overhears guards announcing that the town gate will be closed while the ogre hunt is underway. Hiding nearby, she calculates that this means she'll be trapped in Latomu for at least 5 days. Her eyes widen as she watches the massive crowd of adventurers gathering for the imminent hunt. A high-ranking official stands before the assembled adventurers, preparing to begin the subjugation. She sees the official subjugation request, shocked by the sheer number of ogres that had been nearby. The memory of a glowing blade flashes, symbolizing the start of the massive 10-day-long hunt. Watching the distant campfires, she laments being unexpectedly confined to the village for 10 whole days. Finally, the victorious adventurers parade the slain Ogre King's corpse through the village for all to see. Lost in the celebratory crowd, she gets her first close look at an ogre, a creature she'd once fled. With the threat finally gone, she happily dashes through a quiet alley, feeling a sense of true relief. She knows that since ogre meat is inedible, the corpse will be discarded after its valuables are harvested. Finally able to leave the village walls, she joyfully embraces Sora, letting it out of her bag. A gentle, relieved smile spreads across her face as she cherishes this quiet, peaceful moment of freedom. She reflects on how difficult it was to keep her unique slime companion hidden for 10 long days. During her confinement, she had spent 3 days studying, but eventually grew tired of wandering the town. Cuddling Sora, she feels relieved she stocked up on blue potions, ensuring her companion had enough food. With their supplies running low, she decides it's time to head back to the town's dump. However, as she approaches, a sudden noise makes her pause and cautiously peek from behind the trees. To her dismay, she finds a large group of adventurers already there, rummaging through the discarded items. She realizes the dump is crowded because the adventurers couldn't access it during the 10-day lockdown. Seeing how busy it is, she decides it's best to leave and try her luck again later. With the dump occupied, she heads into the now safe forest, hoping to find some fresh food. She cautiously makes her way through the undergrowth, her senses on high alert for any potential game. Her search is abruptly interrupted as she trips, sending one of her precious potion bottles flying. After recovering her footing, she pauses by a small stream to wash up from the fall. Sora watches her quietly, its expression unreadable as it waits patiently by her side. Clutching the recovered potion, she smiles, incredibly relieved that it did not break during the tumble. Her rest is interrupted as she looks up, her attention suddenly captured by a nearby fruit tree. Recognizing the sweet fruit she had picked before, she excitedly reaches up to grab another one. Sora's expression suddenly shifts, its wide eyes fixed intently on the seemingly ordinary tree. Without warning, Sora launches itself into the air, tackling her out of the way with surprising force. She is sent stumbling backward, completely caught off guard by her companion's sudden, strange action. Letting out a cry of pure confusion, she struggles to understand what just happened. Her confusion turns to alarm as she sees a blur of motion from the corner of her eye. A massive, dark appendage slams into the ground, right where she had been standing moments before. She clutches her arm in pain, realizing the tree's whip-like branch has grievously wounded her. Dark, viscous liquid pours from the deep gash, splattering across the forest floor. She collapses to the ground, in agony, staring in disbelief at the monstrous tree before her. The tree creaks and groans as it reveals its true form, a terrifying, grotesque Trant. The monster's massive root jaws lunge forward, snapping shut as they attempt to devour her. Just in time, Sora leaps from her shoulder and expands its body to block the deadly attack. The sheer force of the impact sends her flying backward, tumbling through the air. Hitting the ground running, she immediately breaks into a desperate sprint, fleeing for her life. Panting heavily, she glances over her shoulder, a look of pure terror etched onto her face. Having escaped, she collapses, knowing she needs a potion but is too weak to move. Overcome by blood loss and pain, she realizes she must get Sora out of her bag. Sweating and trembling, she desperately struggles to reach the bag containing her only friend. Before she can reach it, Sora pops out of the bag of its own accord. She weakly calls out to Sora, a wave of relief washing over her despite the pain. Sora then launches itself from the bag, moving quickly towards its injured Tamer. As Sora lands beside her, she winces, clutching her bleeding arm in agony. Sora suddenly sprouts its wing-like appendages, preparing to do something extraordinary. The slime seems to apologize, before moving towards her gaping wound with clear intent. Believing this is the end, she reassures Sora that it will be okay, even if she dies. Lying on the forest floor, she's suddenly baffled as the intense pain completely vanishes. A strange, tingling sensation washes over her as magical particles fill the air around her. Her eyes snap open, a look of utter surprise replacing the pained expression from moments before. A brilliant light emanates from her arm as Sora performs its mysterious healing. She stares in awe as Sora covers her wound, revealing a human handprint within its body. Looking around the now quiet forest, she calls out Sora's name as strange particles float by. She falls back in shock, watching Sora float above her, stunned by the turn of events. Sora makes the same relaxing sound it does when eating, bringing a small smile to her face. The handprint inside its body leads her to the bizarre conclusion that Sora is eating her wound. Lying on the ground, she raises her right hand, completely amazed that it is fully healed. After the miraculous healing, Sora wobbles contentedly on the forest floor, seemingly pleased with itself. Completely overwhelmed and still in shock from the ordeal, she wonders what she should do now. Sora then affectionately nuzzles her fully healed arm, confirming that the grievous wound is completely gone. To her absolute astonishment, Sora then begins to split apart, dividing into multiple, smaller slimes. She sits up, completely bewildered, staring at the cluster of tiny new slimes gathered before her. The small slimes jiggle playfully, nudging each other as if they've just woken from a nap. As she stands up, she is surprised to find that her body feels incredibly light and refreshed. Looking at her own hands, she's amazed that not even a single scar remains from the monster's attack. Her arm glows with a faint, magical aura, the last remnants of Sora's powerful healing ability. The group of smaller slimes bounces energetically, seemingly invigorated by their recent multiplication. Suddenly, one of the tiny slimes bumps into her leg, as if demanding her full attention. Startled by the contact, she looks down, still trying to process the impossible situation before her. The original Sora, now much smaller than before, wobbles happily, its body more compact. The now smaller slime looks up at her, glowing with a soft light, seemingly proud of its work. It lets out a series of quiet chirps, as though it is trying to communicate something important. A faint blush spreads across her face as she stares in wonder at her mysterious slime companion. Tears of relief and confusion well in her eyes as the emotions of the last few minutes hit her. One of the small slimes then does a cheerful little roll, seemingly unbothered by the recent danger. The other tiny slimes bounce excitedly around her feet in a chaotic but joyous dance. As she begins to walk away, she's surprised to see the new slimes forming a perfect line behind her. The small slimes obediently hop along the forest path, following her in single file. She reflects on the attack, realizing she would have died from blood loss before she could use a potion. The memory flashes of her happily reaching for the fruit, completely unaware of the impending danger. Just as she was about to touch the fruit, Sora heroically intervened and saved her life. Tears of gratitude stream down her face as she laughs, remembering how Sora miraculously healed her arm. Looking at her bag of potions, She admits she is too overwhelmed to understand what just happened. Despite the confusion, she looks at her companion, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. With her voice choked with emotion, she sincerely thanks Sora for saving her from certain death. As a gentle rain begins to fall, Sora responds with a series of happy, reassuring chirps. Under the cover of a large tree, she removes her torn and bloodied outer garments to clean up. She sits peacefully with Sora, holding her freshly cleaned clothes after the terrifying ordeal. Pondering Sora's powers, she realizes its healing ability far surpasses the weak, expired potions she feeds it. Returning to Latomu, she decides to report the Trant to prevent others from falling into its trap. At the town hall, an official confirms her report, describing the monster that disguises itself as a tree. He recounts a past incident where a Trant, after losing its prey, mimicked other trees and caused damage. The official praises her for identifying the monster, but she nervously dismisses it as a mere coincidence. Internally, she cringes, knowing she can't admit that she almost died walking right up to it. She receives another reward of 5 Gadal, learning the Trant is a threat 2 intermediate adventurers can handle. Back at the dump, she finds it overflowing with even more discarded items, many in good condition. With Sora's food supply secured, she begins to eagerly sort through her newly scavenged treasures. She theorizes that the many discarded potions are from local children practicing alchemy. Pleased with her haul, she counts 76 blue potions for Sora and some salvageable clothes. After carefully inspecting each bottle for cracks, she begins putting them into her magic bag. While organizing, she suddenly realizes that she seems to be missing one of her red potions. She remembers finding 3 red potions, which heal sickness, but now she can only account for 2. Picking up one of the remaining red potions, a thoughtful and slightly puzzled expression crosses her face. Cradling Sora, she wonders aloud if the missing potion might have simply fallen out of her bag. Sora then nudges her bag insistently, seemingly communicating its desire to be carried securely. A gentle, knowing smile appears on her face as she looks down at her clever slime companion. She embraces Sora tightly, asking it to be sure to warn her of any future dangers. In response, the small slime jiggles happily, letting out a series of affirmative, bubbly chirps. 5 days later, her journey leads her to a worn signpost marking the village of Lados. Cautiously, she approaches the new village, peeking out from the relative safety of the forest's edge. She enters the outskirts, a bit overwhelmed by the sight of the unfamiliar adventurer camp. Stepping into the village proper, she is disappointed to find it small and rundown, just like her hometown. She realizes that being so far from a major town, this village was never destined to prosper. Seeing the dilapidated state of the butcher shop, she immediately reconsiders her plan to buy more meat. Her mind flashes back to some troubling information she gathered at a local bar 2 days ago. The villagers were complaining that their chief had been caught embezzling taxes, ruining the local economy. At the overflowing dump, she wonders why the village doesn't have a tamed slime for waste disposal. She is absolutely delighted to find the rundown village's dump is full of intact blue potions. Beside a patiently waiting Sora, she carefully lays out her scavenged potions on a large cloth. Deciding to be practical, she begins sorting her findings, leaving behind the discolored potions. With her organization complete, she confirms there is nothing else she needs to throw away for now. While working, she gives Sora a gentle, affectionate poke on its squishy, translucent body. Her simple touch is met with a surprising reaction, causing her to look on with curiosity. Suddenly, Sora begins to glow with a mysterious light, emitting magical sparkles into the air. The brilliant aura seems to be emanating from a single red potion she had set aside. Covered in the magical particles, she stares in shock, questioning what is happening with the potion. Before she can react, Sora moves with surprising speed, reaching for the glowing red potion. She watches in complete disbelief, wondering if Sora truly ate a red potion for the first time. The empty bottle is briefly visible inside Sora's body before it completely dissolves into light. After its unusual meal, Sora sparkles brightly, seemingly energized by the new type of potion. She observes her companion's strange new behavior with a look of complete and utter fascination. To test its new appetite, she then presents one of the discarded green potions to Sora. However, Sora completely ignores the offering, confirming it still refuses to eat any green potions. Cradling her slime, she ponders the many mysteries surrounding its newfound ability to eat red potions. Despite the confusion, she sees this as a positive change, making it easier to find food for Sora. Her journey continues, taking her through the quiet and desolate landscape surrounding the small village. She recalls that since the Adventurer Square in Latos was completely deserted, she slept very well. Leaving the desolate village of Latos behind, she sets out on her journey at the break of dawn. Consulting her scavenged map, she estimates it will take 7 days to reach the next village, Latome. After 5 days of travel, the lingering fear from her encounter with the Trant finally begins to subside. Under the starry night sky, she holds Sora close, finding a rare moment of peace on her long journey. The next day, she suddenly ducks behind a tree, cautiously hiding from something approaching on the path. From her hiding spot, she observes a small group of travelers on horseback making their way through the forest. One of the men has a stern, intimidating presence that immediately puts her on high alert. This triggers a memory of the kind fortune teller showing her a slave's collar for the first time. The fortune teller had explained that in large towns, people become slaves due to debt or crime. She also warned that ruthless bandits often kidnap unsuspecting travelers to sell them into slavery. Her final warning was to never trust anyone in the forest, as even the wounded could be disguised bandits. Remembering this grim lesson, she watches the travelers warily, knowing she must always be careful. Her thoughts are interrupted by a sudden gasp as she finally lays eyes on her destination. She arrives at a massive stone gate, shocked that the village of Latome looks more like a fortified town. To her further surprise, she sees that the impressive gate is being guarded by several gatekeepers. She hesitates, wondering what to do and if she will need some form of identification to enter. As she worries, a scarred guard approaches her, his expression grim as he asks if she is alone. Nervously, she confirms she is, and he presses further, asking where she is from. She quietly answers that her hometown is Latome, an answer that visibly startles the guard. The other guards react with complete shock, exclaiming her hometown's name in utter disbelief. The guards conclude her village must be in trouble, sending kids far away to find food. Her heart pounds with confusion, wondering what they could possibly mean by her village being in trouble. Before she can ask, the scarred guard reaches out a large, gloved hand towards her. He gives her a surprisingly gentle pat, telling her to hang in there, which flusters her. As she enters the town, she realizes the guard was genuinely worried and even cheered her on. This unexpected kindness makes her wonder if something truly terrible has happened back in Latome. Determined to find answers, she walks through the bustling town, deciding to investigate the troubling rumors. Feeling small and a bit lost, she carefully navigates the crowded streets of the large town. Suddenly, one of the small slimes pops out from her bag, peeking at the new surroundings. The tiny slime then falls to the ground, bouncing curiously along the cobblestone street behind her. She quickly scoops up the mischievous slime, gently but firmly tucking it back into her bag. She happily reflects that Sora is growing so much, it will soon be indistinguishable from a normal slime. However, she realizes that in all her travels, she has never seen another slime with Sora's unique color. While she has seen some with pretty colors, the thought makes her dizzy, as none were like Sora. Feeling overwhelmed by the sheer size of the crowd, she decides it is time to take a break. Her search leads her to an economic inn for beginners, the smell of fresh bread filling the air. Inside, she overhears a child excitedly telling their mother they can't wait to see a new place. The child eagerly plans to go home and prepare for their father's party, a heartwarming scene for her. A gentle, wistful smile graces her face as she quietly observes the happy family's interaction. Observing the locals, she concludes this peaceful town likely doesn't have the grim information she seeks. Her search for answers about her hometown ends here, as she realizes this peaceful town is a dead end. She sits on a bench, a bit wistfully, observing the happy, bustling lives of the townspeople. Deciding to stay the night, she heads to the sprawling adventurer camp located just outside the town walls. At the reception building, a man seems surprised that she intends to stay in the adventurer square. After paying, he hands her a wooden license board, her official permit to stay in the camp. The man explains that to avoid trouble, the camp has a limited capacity, requiring the license to enter. A kind adventurer then points her to a quieter, safer spot, perfect for a lone traveler like her. She finds the recommended spot and quickly sets up her small solitary stool to claim her territory. Feeling a sense of relief and security, she takes a moment to catch her breath and settle in. The peaceful, uncrowded spot is perfect for a good night's sleep, so her reservation is a success. Looking out over the massive, well-managed camp, she is impressed by its sheer size and organization. Her attention is then drawn to the equally large and tattered town dump, filled with adventurers' refuse. While scavenging, she finds a ruined bag, deciding against it and worrying Sora could get lost. A playful idea then strikes her, and she asks Sora if it wants to explore the dump together. In response, the small slimes chirp excitedly and leap out, ready for a scavenging adventure. The slimes then perform a surprising new acrobatic move, bouncing off a discarded book in midair. She warns one of them to be careful, right as it gets momentarily stuck in a pile of junk. With her companions in tow, she happily continues her successful search through the massive scrap heap. Her efforts pay off as she proudly shows Sora a box full of salvaged, intact potions. She then begins teaching one of the small slimes her process for carefully checking the bottles for cracks. She sits peacefully near the town dump, happily sorting through her scavenged potions with Sora. The dump was so large, she managed to stock up on more blue and red potions than she could carry. With a gentle smile, she tells Sora they can return to the village after it finishes its meal. Her calm expression suddenly shifts to one of alert caution as she senses a change in the air. She quickly scoops up Sora, who seems to confirm her unease by vibrating with a silent warning. While walking back, she spots two figures on the path ahead and realizes someone is approaching. Acting on instinct, she quickly shoves Sora into her bag, keeping her unique companion hidden. She nervously tries to walk past the two men, hoping to appear like an ordinary, unassuming child. One of the men, who has a particularly grim and intimidating face, turns to watch her pass. The two men stop in their tracks to observe her, their unsettling presence making her very uneasy. In hushed tones, the two armored men seem to be discussing the small child who just walked by. Glancing back, she realizes with a jolt that they are wearing the same uniforms as the town's gatekeepers. Passing another group, she wonders if the forest is now being regularly patrolled by the town guard. This increase in adventurers makes her realize it's too risky to let Sora out, forcing her to find a solution. To her surprise, as she re-enters the town, the guards let her pass this time without any questions. She looks up at the festive streets, wondering if her own suspicious behavior caused the previous interrogation. Her attention is then drawn to a market stall, where she carefully observes the various goods for sale. A bright, happy expression suddenly lights up her face as she finds exactly what she needs. She approaches a butcher's stall, where a friendly old woman greets her with a warm welcome. She happily purchases a large bag of dried rabbit meat for $300, pleased with the economical price. While examining her purchase of dried meat, she decides to ask the friendly shopkeeper a quick question. The woman kindly explains that wild rabbit is much cheaper because the animals are more common and easier to hunt. Seeing a new business opportunity, she asks if the woman would be willing to buy freshly hunted meat from her. Blushing with determination, she happily confirms that she will be doing all of the hunting by herself. However, her confident answer seems to fill the kind shopkeeper with a sudden and deep sense of worry. Leaning in, the woman earnestly warns her to be careful of dangerous tusked animals in the area called Nonoshi. Grateful for the tip, Ivy thanks her, clarifying if the dangerous Nonoshi is an animal and not a monster. Returning to the adventurer camp, she overhears a guard explaining a sudden change in the camp's management. The guard informs a visitor that since the administrator has changed, they will need a new license board. The unexpected news seems to catch one of the nearby adventurers completely by surprise, making him jump. Looking out over the vast and sprawling adventurer camp, she lets out a small, thoughtful sigh. With a newfound sense of purpose, she begins to make her way through the bustling encampment. Lost in thought, she is startled as she clumsily trips over another adventurer's outstretched leg. Regaining her footing, her attention is immediately drawn to a nearby stall selling freshly baked goods. Her gaze then shifts to the rows upon rows of simple tents, the temporary homes for countless adventurers. While exploring the camp's lively market, she is surprised to spot two familiar guards from the forest patrol. The two gatekeepers from her earlier encounter are now walking through the busy camp, their expressions serious. The scarred guard, who had first questioned her at the town gate, seems to be lost in grim thought. She then quietly observes a couple as they browse the various adventuring supplies sold at a small stall. A neatly displayed tent set up at one of the stalls suddenly gives her a brilliant new idea. She realizes that with a tent, she could finally let Sora out of her bag safely. Her attention is drawn to a small sign advertising good quality, second-hand adventuring goods for sale. The term second-hand makes her pause, a look of deep consideration on her face. Suddenly, the two guards from the gate appear behind her, startling her with a friendly question. The scarred guard apologizes profusely for frightening her, while his companion scolds him for being too loud. She then recognizes them as the same guards she had spoken with upon her initial arrival. Overcoming her surprise, she timidly explains that she is hoping to buy a small second-hand tent. The two men exchange a look of surprise and concern upon hearing her request for a tent. The guard concludes that her village, Latomi, must be in deep trouble to expel a child without supplies. Before she can process his words, the scarred guard suddenly grabs her by the arm. Startled by the sudden action, she lets out a small yelp of surprise, but he reassures her. He enthusiastically begins leading her away, promising to take her to a skillful old man's shop. As she is pulled through the crowd, his companion shouts for him to slow down and wait. Her mind races with his words, wondering if her hometown is truly in such dire straits. The other guard continues to scold his friend, warning him that he is hurting her arm. Their chaotic journey quickly brings them to the storefront of a rustic-looking shop in the camp. The scarred guard immediately turns and offers her a very sincere and heartfelt apology for his roughness. He frets over her reddened arm, but she quickly reassures him that she is perfectly all right. His partner apologizes for his friend's impulsive nature, and the guard looks on with genuine concern. As an apology, the guard vows to personally make sure she finds a very good tent. The guard explains that while the old man is quirky, his second-hand goods are expertly repaired to last. Annoyed by the commotion, the gruff old craftsman looks up from his work as the guard enters. He then turns his attention to Ivy, his stern expression unwavering as he asks what she needs. Without preamble, the old man bluntly questions her, asking where her parents are. The guard gently places a hand on her head, explaining to the craftsman that she is from Latomi. Upon hearing this, the old man's hardened expression softens slightly with a flicker of understanding. He grimly concludes that Latomi must be exiling children to reduce the number of mouths to feed. Changing the subject, he asks what she wants, and Ivy nervously repeats her request for a one-person tent. He then asks for her budget, but she can only inquire about the price, unsure what to offer. The guard steps in, stating her budget is 5 Gadal, wanting to protect her valuable gold coins. The surprisingly high budget leaves both the craftsman and Ivy completely shocked and speechless. Understanding her situation better, the old man immediately begins searching through his stock of rolled-up tents. He correctly deduces she must have received the reward money for reporting a dangerous monster. The guard clarifies that the monster in question was the dangerous Trant that mimics trees. He then asks if she was hurt during the encounter, and she quietly confirms that she was. The craftsman reassures her, confidently stating that 5 Guidal is more than enough for a nice tent. He presents a lightweight option in good condition, noting it would be perfect for a small boy like her. To be sure, he then instructs her to try setting it up herself to see if she can manage it. Following his instructions, she goes outside with the guard and begins to unroll the tent. The guard then kneels beside her, patiently demonstrating how to assemble the tent's crossbow-like frame. The guard shows her how to insert the rods into the wooden frame, a crucial step in the assembly. As they work, she recalls the beginning of her lonely journey, fleeing her village in despair. With their guidance, she pulls the thick canvas tautly over the intricate and sturdy frame. A painful memory of being alone and soaked by the rain surfaces, a stark contrast to her current situation. She remembers having to rely on flimsy makeshift shelters, always fearing she was being pursued. The rain had always been the worst, as it made sensing the approach of dangerous monsters nearly impossible. But now, with a renewed sense of hope, she helps secure the final ropes of her new tent. Looking up at the two guards watching over her, a bright, grateful smile spreads across her face. The tent stands fully assembled, a magnificent and safe shelter she can finally call her own. Kneeling inside for the first time, she runs her hand across the smooth, unfamiliar texture of the floor. Sitting within the spacious interior, she feels an overwhelming and profound sense of safety and peace. She looks up at the central pole, impressed by the high-quality construction and durability of the tent. Standing up, she is amazed by just how much room she has, a small luxury she never expected. From the balcony of his shop, the gruff old craftsman watches the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. She peeks out from her new sanctuary, seeing the two friendly guards still waiting patiently for her. A blush of pure happiness colors her cheeks, deeply touched by their unexpected kindness and support. Surrounded by the craftsman and the two guards, she shares a heartwarming moment of camaraderie and belonging. Her new tent now sits as a safe haven amid the bustling, lively streets of the large town. The craftsman explains that her new tent is a popular, brand new model, known for being sturdy yet light. His words leave her completely baffled, as she was certain she had asked to buy a second-hand tent. The craftsman explains the tent belonged to a retired adventurer, and Ivy excitedly agrees to buy it. He then offers to put a personal mark on it, a suggestion that leaves her slightly confused. She eagerly accepts his offer, asking him to place the mark on a specific spot for her. However, he surprises her by handing her the tools, insisting that she must do it herself. The old craftsman then expertly pulls the tent's canvas taut, preparing the surface for her. With the two guards helping hold the fabric, she kneels down to carefully draw her unique mark. She meticulously uses the quill, her hand steady as she inscribes the unfamiliar character onto the tent. Looking at her finished work, a blush of surprise and pride spreads across her face. Her unique symbol leaves the guards completely baffled, wondering if it is some kind of secret code. However, the wise old craftsman seems to recognize the character, saying it reads like. He then offers her some kind words of encouragement, which makes her heart flutter with warmth. She thanks the guards for their help, mentioning she still needs to investigate what happened in Latomi. Their conversation is cut short as the guards realize they are now late for their patrol. With a heartfelt smile, she waves a fond goodbye to her new friends as they rush off. The craftsman then calls out to her, and she waves back, playfully calling him a loud man. As a parting gift for her generous payment, he tosses her a small, regular magic bag. He correctly guesses that her current bags are the inferior version, a fact she quickly confirms. She explains that her old bags are dangerous because they make it easy for others to see her valuables. Overwhelmed by their generosity, she offers her sincere thanks. Touched by how kind everyone has been, filled with pure joy and excitement, she decides to go set up her new tent immediately. While navigating the bustling marketplace, her attention is caught by a familiar, nostalgic scent. She immediately recognizes the smell of Zaro fruits, the famous specialty from her hometown, Latomi. She recalls that the highly nutritional fruit is incredibly popular and valuable in larger towns. Approaching a stall, she is absolutely floored by the exorbitant price of the Zaro fruits. Noting her interest, the kind vendor offers her 2 overripe fruits for free since they can't be sold. She confirms they are Zaro from Latomi, and the vendor explains that they only grow there. When asked if she's from there, she happily confirms, clutching the precious fruit from her home. Her happy demeanor fades as the vendor's expression turns serious, and he asks about her parents. Another woman is shocked to learn she is traveling alone, noting that it has been a rough year. The woman then erupts in anger, furiously blaming the village's stupid village chief for the troubles. The vendor asks if she was chased out, showing a flashback of the menacing village chief. Looking down sadly, Ivy simply admits that she ran away from her home. Sensing her desire for answers, the vendor decides to be honest and share what he knows about Latomi. He begins by asking if she knew the fortune teller from the village, a woman named Louver Wright. He explains how Louver's skills protected the village's income, a fact the chief greatly resented. The horrible truth is revealed. When Louver was sick, the chief denied her medicine while lying to the villagers. However, Louver had a contingency plan, and only the chief's inner circle knew about the deception. Eventually, some suspicious villagers interrogated one of the followers and learned the awful truth about Louver's murder. In a desperate attempt to cover his tracks, the chief blamed the village's misfortune on parentless children and expelled them. The vendor looks at her with newfound understanding, but asks why she ran away instead of being exiled. She bows her head, quietly processing the grim details of the village chief's betrayal and murder. After a moment of heavy silence, she finally speaks, her voice filled with quiet resignation. She reveals that for her, the bigger problem was not the chief, but her own cruel parents. Leaving the vendor's stall, she is grateful for the information, despite how painful it was to hear. A flashback confirms the corrupt chief took power the same year she was born into the village. Holding the fruits from her hometown, she realizes the chief's evil runs deeper than she ever knew. She's haunted by memories of her parents, who willingly followed the chief's cruel commands without question. Inhaling the sweet scent of the Zaro fruit, she finds a small moment of comfort amid the turmoil. With newfound resolve, she decides that her cruel family and painful past no longer matter to her. Walking through the lively streets, she feels a sense of closure, glad to finally understand what happened. She wonders if Latomi will fall into decline like the other village with a corrupt, arrested chief. She resolves that from now on, she will simply tell the truth, that she ran away from Latomi. Returning to the camp's administrative building, she prepares to turn in her old license board. She is surprised to find a new person in charge as she hands over her temporary permit. The new administrator asks about the town's vigilance committee, confirming another change in management. She watches the guards with admiration, impressed by the diligence of the large town's watch. With her new, long-term license board in hand, she heads back to her reserved spot in the camp. Sitting down, she happily begins tidying her area to make room for her brand new tent. She lovingly mends a piece of clothing, enjoying a rare and peaceful moment of domesticity. With her space prepared, she spreads out the canvas and begins to hammer in the tent stakes. With focused determination, she lifts the central pole, the final step in assembling her new home. After a brief struggle, she successfully drives the last stake into the ground, securing the structure. She stands back to admire her handiwork, a perfectly pitched tent now ready for use. A dreamy expression crosses her face as she marvels at owning a tent she bought with her own money. Peeking inside, she feels a profound sense of accomplishment and security in her very first home. Inside the tent, she finally lets Sora out, holding her companion gently in the safe, private space. Sora's eyes widen with curiosity as it takes in the new and unfamiliar surroundings of the tent. The small slime begins to explore, curiously nudging against the sturdy canvas walls of its new home. Watching it happily, she comments on how fluffy and content her companion seems in the new space. Sora looks up at her with a calm expression, seemingly at peace in their shared sanctuary. The smaller slimes then emerge, happily hopping and bouncing around the spacious interior of the tent. One of the tiny slimes affectionately bumps against her cheek, making her giggle with delight. She gently reminds Sora and its smaller counterparts to remain quiet while they are inside. She sighs in relief, grateful for the comfortable privacy where she no longer has to hide. A gentle smile graces her face as she watches dust motes dance in the light, enjoying the peace. Letting out a big yawn, she realizes that with her shelter set, she has nothing urgent to do. With a bright smile, she decides to simply relax and enjoy her new tent for a while. She prepares a simple but satisfying meal for herself, a small luxury in her new safe space. For her companion, she lays out a feast of various red and blue potions. A true buffet. She happily eats her meal while Sora devours its potions, both enjoying a peaceful dinner together. She savors her warm meal, content in her new home as Sora looks on. Sora sparkles brightly, having finished its own meal of various colorful potions. She then happily bites into a sweet Zaro fruit, a precious taste of her long-lost home. Sitting peacefully, she cherishes the profound warmth and safety of her very own tent. The adventurer camp bustles with activity, a temporary city of wanderers under the open sky. Having finished her satisfying meal, she lets out a contented sigh of pure comfort. With a new goal in mind, she tells Sora they will be hunting wild rabbits tomorrow. She consults her survival guide, learning rabbit meat is a much more substantial food source. Lying with Sora, she decides to try making the new traps with her current supplies. Sora bounces in agreement, seemingly eager to help set up the traps the next day. Her expression hardens with determination, knowing she must earn back the money spent on the tent. Suddenly, she notices Sora's body is foaming strangely, even though it has finished eating. Filled with concern, she gently pokes her companion, asking if it is feeling all right. The strange foaming abruptly stops, leaving Sora looking slightly dazed, but otherwise unharmed. Sora then stretches its body in a peculiar new way, catching her completely by surprise. The slime's form continues to shift and contort in a strange, unprecedented manner. That night under the stars, she begins to worry that she might have overfed her friend. The next morning, the sprawling camp is already alive with the day's preparations and activities. She heads to the communal cooking area, blending in with the other adventurers. Preparing some tea, she smiles, finding her new tent far more comfortable than she imagined. Enjoying the safety of the camp, she worries she's becoming too relaxed after her time in the wild. Still, she finds happiness in the simple pleasure of a warm cup of tea in the morning. Her peaceful moment is interrupted as she spots an intimidating group of adventurers passing by. The adventurers share menacing smirks, their sinister presence immediately putting her on edge. Nearby, another adventurer nervously eats his meal, clearly intimidated by the group's passing. The strange party continues its confident stroll through the camp, scanning the area with purpose. Sensing the palpable shift in the air, she realizes the entire atmosphere has suddenly grown tense. Suddenly, her quiet morning is shattered as one of the adventurers points directly at her, yelling, "Thief!" Completely bewildered by the accusation, she can only look on in confused silence. Her eyes widen with shock and fear as she tries to process the sudden, hostile confrontation. Before she can react, the entire party surrounds her, with their leader confidently confirming his accusation. The large man aggressively points at her shelter, shouting that this is his stolen tent. Startled by his outburst, her teacup slips from her hand and shatters on the ground. One of his companions then screams at her from a distance, demanding she tell the truth. Without warning, the leader grabs her by the collar, accusing her of stealing the tent. Terrified, she desperately tries to explain that she bought it, insisting she didn't steal anything. He scoffs at her claim, yelling that a mere child could never afford such a high-quality tent. His grip on her tightens menacingly as he continues to press his baseless accusation. Leaning in close, he calls her a liar, and her face fills with absolute terror. The commotion begins to attract a crowd, including a vigilant guard on horseback. Frozen with fear, she endures his accusations while onlookers comment on the awful scene. The man lifts her violently by her collar, screaming in her face as his party watches. He then demands her arrest, reaching out to grab her as she braces for the blow. A guard intervenes, and the man immediately accuses her of stealing his friend's unmarked tent. He claims it was stolen right after purchase, leaving no time for a personal mark. The accuser insists it's just common sense that a child could never afford such a tent. A close-up reveals the unique, crown-like symbol she had carefully placed on the canvas. Growing impatient with the guard's questions, the man erupts in a furious outburst. His companions mock the guard, urging him to simply do his job and make the arrest. Fed up with their taunts, the guard's expression hardens as his patience finally runs out. Stepping between them, the guard places a protective hand before her and declares the tent is hers. Stunned by this defense, the accuser continues to rage as the guard calmly questions him. The man reveals he bought his brand new tent from a specific shop called Baki's store. The guard then calmly explains that since her tent is clearly a used item, it cannot be theirs. She looks up at her unexpected defender, who stands resolute against the hostile group. Trying to be helpful, she blurts out that her tent is brand new, contradicting the guard. Her comment sends the accuser into another rage as he lunges at her, screaming wildly. However, the guard confidently states that the tent is a used item from Old Man Lagu's store. Ivy immediately recalls the gruff craftsman who sold her the tent, confirming the guard's words. She then looks up, wondering how this guard could possibly know its exact origin. The guard reveals he knows who introduced her to the store. He names Captain Oguto and Vice Captain Verivera, stunning the accuser and his party. Ivy's eyes sparkle with dawning realization at the mention of their names. The accuser recoils in absolute shock, while Ivy is equally surprised by the revelation. She finally understands that the two kind guards who helped her were high-ranking officers. The blonde guard then presses the accuser, preparing to question him once more. Asked if his tent was truly stolen, the man stammers and tries to deny his previous claim. He attempts to dismiss the incident as a mistake, but the guard insists on further questioning. The captain on horseback declares they have many questions for the suspicious group. Sweating profusely, the accuser is warned there will be no mercy if he tries to flee. After the confrontation, the blonde guard calmly picks up a kettle to make some tea. As the accusers are led away, a bystander thanks the guards for their timely intervention. Ivy then curiously asks her defender how he knew for certain that the tent was hers. He explains that he saw her at the shop, and later heard about her from the concerned captain. He adds that the captain was genuinely worried about whether she could set up the tent alone. Touched that he was concerned for her, she reassures the guard that she wasn't hurt. The guard expresses his relief, and she offers a grateful bow for all his help. Back at her tent, she sips her warm drink, a gentle, grateful expression on her face. Still shaken from the ordeal, she feels that no matter how many times she thanks them, it's not enough. Her quiet moment is interrupted by a low growl from a sleek black creature in the nearby woods. The next day, she heads into the forest, her boots treading softly on the familiar path. With her fists clenched in determination, she begins the hunt to earn back her funds. Cradling Sora, she scans the woods, her expression focused as she searches for the perfect spot. Finding a suitable location, she expertly sets up one of her simple snare traps. She cautiously checks her surroundings, ensuring there are no other adventurers nearby. Feeling secure, a bright smile lights up her face as she tells Sora it's time to work. With her rabbit traps now successfully set, she moves deeper into the forest. She quickly finds clear signs of animal activity, confirming this is a good hunting ground. Satisfied with her progress, she decides to also search for materials for mousetraps. She holds Sora close, sharing a quiet moment before continuing her task. Suddenly, a blur of motion crashes through the undergrowth, startling her from her work. A massive, wolf-like beast emerges, its panting breath echoing through the tense silence. Instantly sensing the danger, Sora begins to vibrate intensely in her arms. Without warning, Sora leaps from her grasp, bouncing away with a sudden sense of urgency. She immediately gives chase, frantically following her companion through the dense woods. Sora bounces high over the trees, heading in the direction of the nearby town dump. Confused by its trajectory, she calls out as Sora veers off the main path. The slime continues its high-speed bouncing, clearly leading her towards a specific destination. She struggles to keep up, her small legs pumping as she follows close behind. Sora ricochets off a pile of refuse, creating a small splash as it lands. Arriving at the dump, she finds Sora beside the large, unconscious black beast from the forest. The creature suddenly twitches, revealing it is still alive despite its apparent injuries. It lets out a pained huff, its breathing heavy and labored as it lies on the ground. Clutching Sora, she realizes with a start that this is the same creature she heard growling earlier. The monster rises to its feet, snarling as Sora bravely places itself between them. In a surprising show of defiance, Sora lets out its own low, rumbling growl. Ivy observes that while the beast is threatening them, it also seems to be in immense pain. As the monster snarls again, Sora and its smaller duplicates bounce, ready to act. Before she can react, Sora launches forward, engulfing the monster's head in its gelatinous body. In a flash, Sora expands and completely envelops the massive, struggling creature. She can only stare in wide-eyed shock, completely stunned by her slime's incredible action. Crying out its name, she watches as Sora completely restrains the snarling beast. Flustered and confused, she tries to process the impossible sight of Sora wrapping around the monster. A blush of determination appears on her face as she steels her resolve. Sora maintains its hold, its body glowing with a faint magical light as it restrains the creature. She praises her companion, amazed it could wrap itself around such a large monster. Her amazement quickly turns to panic as she realizes there are more urgent things to consider. The struggle finally ceases, leaving the now silent beast completely encased within Sora. Cautiously approaching, she notes the wounded monster is at least 2 meters long. The creature's eyes finally close as it succumbs to exhaustion, falling unconscious within Sora's embrace. She watches cautiously as a tendril extends from Sora while it envelops the beast. Sitting on the creature, she wonders if Sora is eating or healing it. Deciding she must wait, an unsettling thought about Sora's taste for mortal wounds crosses her mind, which she quickly dismisses. With a flash of magical light, Sora suddenly begins to ripple and retract from the beast's body. She looks on in surprise as her companion fluidly pulls back from the massive creature. The force of Sora, shrinking to its original size, sends her tumbling backward onto the ground. Holding the now tiny slime, she asks if it's finished, and it chirps affirmatively. Looking from the healed beast to her book, a flash of recognition crosses her face. She identifies the majestic creature from her studies as a rare and dangerous Adandara. A flashback shows the book's illustration, depicting the terrifying silhouette of the monster. Her guide described it as a violent and unmanageable creature that rarely shows itself. The grim text continued, warning of the dire consequences of encountering such a beast. She recalls the chilling passage, stating that meeting one in the forest is a death sentence. The memory of being surrounded by monsters returns, her body frozen with sheer terror. She remembers trembling uncontrollably, completely unsure of how to survive the encounter. Back in the present, Sora rests calmly in her hands, its mysterious work now complete. Suddenly, the Adandara's eye snaps open, its sharp gaze locking directly onto her. To her complete astonishment, the massive beast leans in and gently licks her cheek. The creature then affectionately nuzzles against her, making her wonder if it thinks she saved it. With the calm beast now sitting beside her, she breathes a sigh of relief, feeling safe for now. Holding Sora close, she breathes a heartfelt sigh of gratitude for her companion's help. The Adandara gently nuzzles her, its surprisingly fluffy fur belying its deadly reputation. She wistfully reaches out, lamenting that her weak magic prevents her from taming the magnificent beast. As she wishes for more magic energy, a strange effervescence fills the air around her. She notices Sora is foaming again, a mysterious reaction that occurs even when it's not eating. Her attention is suddenly drawn to the sound of approaching footsteps in the woods. 2 armored men rush through the forest, their expressions urgent and determined. Sensing the approaching danger, she quickly urges the Adandara to flee into the forest. Peeking from behind the beast, she realizes several people are approaching at an alarming speed. The Adandara's ear twitches, its senses on high alert as the pursuers draw closer. Instead of running, the beast pushes her down, shielding her protectively with its massive body. With a powerful leap, the Adandara scoops her onto its back and dashes away. It bounds through the undergrowth with incredible speed, leaving a blur of motion in its wake. Awed by the ride, she excitedly tells Sora how amazing their powerful new friend is. They land safely in a new clearing, having easily outrun their pursuers. The 2 adventurers finally catch up, asking if she's all right as she pretends to be resting. They explain they are hunting a monster never seen before that has appeared in this area. The other adventurer nervously asks if she saw a specific monster that looks like an Adandara. She denies seeing anything, while the men mention the creature was reportedly in a violent rage. She inwardly smiles, concluding they must mean a different monster since Sora had healed this one. The adventurers spot bloodstains on the ground, and Ivy panics, realizing it's from the Adandara. They question her again, but she denies seeing anything, leading them to assume the monster left. Thanking them for their patrol, she quickly tells them she is heading back to the village. As the adventurers depart, one remains behind, cautiously scanning the area one last time. They conclude it must have been a high-rank monster that accidentally wandered into their territory. Deciding to return the way they came, the adventurers finally leave her in peace. Once they are gone, she looks down with a pained expression, apologizing for her necessary deception. The hidden Adandara seems to listen, its expression calm and understanding as it waits nearby. She recalls how Sora has consistently warned her of danger, from the Trant to this new beast. The unsettling thought returns, making her wonder if Sora has a strange affinity for mortal wounds. However, she decides to trust her companion, believing there must be a good reason for its actions. She immediately second-guesses herself, still feeling uncertain as she clutches Sora tightly. Later, she returns to the familiar stone gate of the town. Her mission complete for now. Upon her return, she is greeted by a familiar face, who offers her a warm welcome back. The guard, Captain Oguto, asks if she is all right after the troubling incident from that morning. She nervously introduces herself as Ivy and thanks him, saying the tent is very comfortable. He reveals that the adventurers who harassed her were already under investigation in other towns. They had a history of falsely accusing young adventurers to steal their valuable belongings. The captain sincerely apologizes for her frightening experience, but she quickly reassures him. He presses the point, and she confirms she's okay, touched by his genuine concern for her. The captain explains the criminals were under constant investigation for their numerous unreported crimes. Relieved she bought her tent from a reputable store, she learns there is more to the story. He then happily informs her that she will receive a reward for her role in their capture. Completely taken aback by the offer, she insists that she did not do anything to deserve it. However, he insists her involvement was crucial for identifying them, and that the money will help. The captain clarifies that the reward will take time, as it depends on the criminal's sentences. Leaving the station, she reflects on the unexpected reward, and how much she still has to learn. Looking over the adventure camp, she realizes she forgot to correct their assumptions about her past. Upon her return to the camp, the blonde guard greets her with a warm welcome back. She thanks him, mentioning she heard all about the successful capture from Captain Oguto. They formally introduce themselves. He is Roygord, the camp manager, and she is Ivy. She then asks about the captain, and Roygord confirms he is currently working as a gatekeeper. Back at her tent, she reflects on the strangely exciting feeling of being welcomed by someone. She muses that this unfamiliar warmth might be because she's simply not used to such kindness. Completely exhausted from the day's events, she gently cradles a sleeping Sora in her arms. Deciding on her next move, she plans to make some traps now and visit the dump tomorrow. As the sun finally sets, her mind shifts back to the immediate needs of her survival. She carefully lays out her small knife and other tools, preparing to craft her new traps. While sorting her supplies, she notes that she is down to her last few precious berries. Eating her snack, she plans to check the rabbit traps before heading into town to sell her catch. She plans her day, which includes gathering berries and visiting the dump for supplies and potions. While she eats, her expression is pensive, focused on the various tasks ahead of her. Suddenly, Sora begins to vibrate, its simple form tense with an unknown energy. Noticing the strange movement, she turns from her meal with a look of quiet concern. The slime continues to pulsate, and she senses that something about it feels different. To her surprise, Sora begins to shrink, its body deflating into a much smaller form. Her eyes widen as she watches the bizarre and unexpected transformation of her companion. She realizes Sora's color has changed, now showing a hint of red within its usual blue hue. Since Sora seems healthy and has its appetite, she decides not to worry about the change for now. Peeking out of her tent, she prepares to start her busy day of foraging and scavenging. The sprawling adventure camp provides a constant backdrop of activity and potential danger. As she makes her way through the camp, the rough atmosphere keeps her on high alert. Suddenly, a drunk adventurer throws a bottle, forcing her to dodge as someone yells for the manager. The sudden violence leaves her shocked and momentarily frozen in place by the escalating chaos. Roygord quickly intervenes, his intimidating smile alone enough to quell the drunken men. She marvels at how swiftly he ended the confusion, before she could even fully process it. Later, as she walks through town, she passes two guards, wondering what they are discussing. A friendly gatekeeper greets her, and she realizes she's growing used to these small kindnesses. However, upon reaching the forest, she is disappointed to find all her traps have failed. Looking at the empty snares, a wave of frustration washes over her as she wonders why. Sensing something, she pauses in the forest, her expression suddenly alert and cautious. She dismisses the feeling, wondering if she just imagined the signs of life nearby. Continuing her check, she is disappointed to find a couple of her traps have been broken. However, Her luck turns as she discovers her third trap has successfully caught a rabbit. Overjoyed by her success, she decides to head to the river to butcher her catch immediately. Arriving at the river, she finds her last trap is empty, just as she expected. The gentle flow of the river creates a peaceful, serene atmosphere in the clearing. She settles down by the water's edge with her basket, ready to begin her work. Nearby, she spots some berry bushes, making a mental note to pick the fruit later. Looking at her catch, she feels a sense of accomplishment for securing a valuable meal. With this success, she happily considers setting even more traps to increase her profits. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted as her expression shifts to one of quiet contemplation. Looking up, she sees the familiar silhouette of the Adandara watching her from the woods. Her reflection in the water shows a calm demeanor as the beast approaches her. A brilliant light shines from the heavens, marking a significant and peaceful moment. The majestic creature now stands before her, confirming it is truly the legendary Adandara. She recognizes its distinctive features, from the large claws to its unique eye color. The distinct pattern on its tail is the final confirmation of the monster's identity. A grim memory surfaces, recalling the terrifying legend that this creature invokes death. Despite the ominous warning, she reaches out and gently places her hand on the beast. The fearsome beast purrs contentedly as she gently strokes its soft, dark fur. It then leaps away playfully, making her question everything she had read about its dangerous nature. Her thoughts are interrupted as a small rabbit suddenly dashes through the nearby bushes. In a flash, the Adandara catches the prey and gently places it unharmed at her feet. She watches in complete amazement as the powerful creature continues to hunt on her behalf. Soon, the majestic Adandara sits proudly before a massive pile of freshly caught rabbits. Her eyes widen with a mix of utter surprise and deep gratitude for the unexpected gift. Blushing, she timidly asks the legendary creature if all of this is really for her. The beast responds with a soft, affectionate purr, confirming its generous offering. Overwhelmed by this incredible act of kindness, her face flushes with pure, unadulterated joy. With a newfound sense of purpose, she begins to carefully organize the pile of rabbits. She then offers the Adandara her most sincere thanks for the unbelievable bounty of food. Its task now seemingly complete, the Adandara begins to quietly depart from the clearing. She inspects the catch, amazed that all 8 rabbits are in perfect, unharmed condition. Before leaving, the creature playfully bats at a curious Sora, showing its gentle side. Realizing their value, she prepares her knife, knowing freshness is key for selling the meat. While she works, the Adandara and Sora rest peacefully, creating a tranquil domestic scene. After a while, she gathers berries, while the Adandara naps peacefully with Sora as a pillow. Her work finally done, she heads into town, making a beeline for the familiar butcher shop. However, upon her arrival, a gruff-looking man greets her with an intense, unfriendly stare. The butcher's wife appears, introducing the gruff man as her husband, much to Ivy's surprise. The woman is impressed by the sheer volume of neatly wrapped rabbits she has brought to sell. Praising their good condition, the woman offers a fair price of $855 for all 9 rabbits. Ivy reflects on the butchering process, noting the thicker meat made it more time-consuming than mice. Leaving the shop, she calculates that wild mice are actually a more profitable venture than rabbits. Back in the forest, she remembers the meat was a gift and offers her sincere thanks to the Adandara. Holding Sora, she smiles warmly, reiterating her gratitude for all the meat it provided. Just like before, the incredibly fast Adandara dashes away into the forest after its visit. She waves a fond farewell, calling out for her powerful new friend to be careful. Later, she runs into Roygord and his patrol, who give her a friendly wave as she passes. He greets her with a smile, confirming that they have just finished their patrol for the day. The guards notice her heading out of town again and curiously ask about her plans. Blushing slightly from the attention, she gives the friendly guards a happy wave goodbye. With warm smiles, the 2 guards wave back, wishing her well on her journey. She returns to the tranquil river, the familiar spot providing a sense of peace and solitude. While washing her clothes, she reflects on how the gatekeepers and patrols now kindly wave to her. Wringing out her shirt, she finds herself completely bewildered by this sudden change in attitude. She realizes the huge meat delivery delayed her plans, recalling the guard's big smiles upon her return. Her thoughts are interrupted as she spots a promising cluster of ripe fruit on a tree. Remembering the Trant, she resolves to check Sora's reaction before approaching any new trees. Using her knife, she carefully cuts a ripe cluster of berries from the tree. She recognizes the valuable fruit, realizing it's a very rare and nutritious type. Consulting her survival guide, she confirms the fruit is safe and highly beneficial for her. With a gentle smile, she holds the fresh fruit, pleased with her successful foraging. Her foraging now complete, she eagerly hurries off toward the massive town dump. She arrives at the familiar, sprawling dump, a promising source of various useful supplies. The dump is so overflowing with potions that she doesn't even have to search for them. After gathering her fill of potions, she begins collecting materials for her traps. She gathers enough materials to make about 10 new traps, similar to her mouse trapping strategy. While working, she is suddenly startled by the sound of approaching footsteps nearby. A new guard surprises her, asking if she is the Ivy the captain was talking about. She confirms her identity, and, in turn, curiously asks the guard who he is. The guard introduces himself as Gunsbell, explaining he was one of the gatekeepers she saw. Another guard appears, jokingly asking if Gunsbell is picking on her, which she quickly denies. The friendly guards then wish her well, waving goodbye as they head off on their patrol. Touched by their kindness, she smiles and waves back, feeling more accepted in the town. With her supplies gathered, she determinedly walks away from the dump, her mission accomplished. However, her pace slows as she makes her way through the town, her shoulders slumping slightly. Her walk is cut short as a voice suddenly calls out from a nearby alley. Turning around, she is shocked once again, wondering how another stranger knows her name. She is suddenly greeted by Vice Captain Vera, who offers her a warm welcome back. Overwhelmed by the unexpected encounter, she flails her arms in a flustered panic. She timidly asks if he also heard about her from the well-meaning Captain Oguto. The vice captain offers a quiet, sheepish apology, confirming her growing suspicions. To her horror, she learns the captain told everyone to help an adventurer named Ivy. A flashback shows Oguto ordering his men to keep an eye on the hard-working lone adventurer. Verivera admits with a weary expression that he tried his best to stop him, but failed. Laughing nervously, she realizes with dawning dread that news of her has spread far and wide. Completely flustered, she defends the captain, insisting he's a good person who just gets carried away. Returning to the square, another guard cheerfully greets her, welcoming her back by name. More guards spot her from a distance, calling out her name with friendly recognition. Soon, another patrol waves, and she finds herself known by nearly everyone in the guard. Finally back at her tent, she comically collapses, completely overwhelmed by her newfound popularity. Face down on the ground, she despairs over how far the captain's warm regards have spread. Inside her tent, she seeks comfort with a sparkly Sora, feeling lost after the day's events. She notices that even after eating its potions, Sora's body continues to bubble with energy. Looking closer, she feels that the red parts within Sora's body are becoming more prominent. Determined to find answers, she tells a confused Sora they are going to the bookstore. Sora bounces happily at the suggestion, and she clasps her hands, pleased by its enthusiasm. The slime's energetic leap nearly knocks her over as they prepare to leave the tent. The small slime lands awkwardly on a book, and she rushes to comfort her seemingly crying companion. Inside her tent, she consoles Sora, remarking that she has never heard of a slime crying before. Later, she expresses her growing concern to Roygord that Sora is becoming something more than a slime. He laughs off her worries, finding the idea of a slime hitting its head and crying completely absurd. Determined to find answers, she enters a bustling bookstore, hoping to learn more about Sora's mysteries. She settles at a crowded table, ready to dive into research to understand her unique companion. With intense focus, she pores over ancient texts, searching for any clue about Sora's abilities. The pages are filled with unfamiliar scripts and diagrams, offering no immediate answers. Her search proves fruitless as she finds herself reading a generic book about various weapons. Her hopes rise as she discovers a dusty old book specifically for people with 1-star skills. However, it's just a basic guide for beginner tamers, only listing monsters they can tame. Looking over the limited selection, she finds the lack of detailed information very strange. Slumped on the floor, she feels disappointed, as the store is nothing like she had imagined. After a long search, she concludes that there are simply no books about slimes available. The books only cover general topics, a stark contrast to the guide the fortune teller gave her. Clutching a book, she feels a sense of quiet frustration, her research hitting a dead end. The bookstore is set up with large tables where patrons read, rather than traditional shelves. Dejectedly, she walks through the large open room, her quest for knowledge seemingly over. Her attention is drawn by a loud thud as another patron finds the book they were looking for. She watches them leave, wondering how anyone can be satisfied with such broad general information. Dejected, she dashes away from the bookstore, her search for answers a complete failure. She runs down a quiet side street, hoping to avoid any more unwanted attention. Her quiet escape is interrupted as a familiar booming voice calls out from behind her. Captain Oguto sprints towards her, enthusiastically shouting that he has finally found her. He finally catches up, completely out of breath from his frantic, citywide search for her. Concerned by his exhausted state, she cautiously asks the panting captain, "What is wrong?" To her shock, he drops to his knees and apologizes profusely in the middle of the street. The bizarre scene leaves the growing crowd of onlookers completely and utterly baffled. Vice Captain Verivera then rushes in, equally stunned by his superior's strange public display. Completely overwhelmed by the chaos, Ivy stares in wide-eyed confusion at the unfolding scene. The crowd whispers in disbelief, shocked to see the respected captain apologizing to a small child. Verivera grabs Oguto, angrily scolding him for not paying attention to his surroundings. The two captains begin to argue, creating an even bigger spectacle in the crowded marketplace. Verivera clarifies he meant Oguto was troubling her by spreading her name to all the troops. Caught in the middle, Ivy blushes with embarrassment as the entire street now stares at them. The vice captain tries to silence his friend, but Oguto continues to make a scene. Overwhelmed by the ridiculousness of it all, she can't help but let out a nervous laugh. Sitting between them, she finally understands that Captain Oguto had simply acted rashly out of concern. From above, the marketplace bustles with its usual energy, unaware of the small drama below. The two captains continue their familiar bickering, with Verivera explaining he's the only one who stops him. Verivera offers to buy her a thank you gift, but she just asks them not to talk about her. Her attention is drawn to the still panting captain, a thoughtful expression on her face. With dramatic flair, Verivera points at Oguto, demanding that he confess his actions. Oguto springs to his feet, loudly apologizing and admitting he was the one who told everyone. Verivera offers another apology, shocked that the captain had spread the news so widely. Completely drained, she realizes she was too late to stop the well-intentioned but troublesome rumors. As Verivera continues to apologize for his friend, Ivy insists that she is the one who is sorry. Ivy defends the captain, understanding he was only trying to help her out of genuine concern. She tries to protest their kindness, feeling completely overwhelmed by all the sudden attention. Changing the subject, Oguto enthusiastically asks if she has tried the village's local specialty. Before she can answer, he gently grabs her by the arm, ready to lead her away. With renewed energy, the captain pulls her along through the crowded and bustling marketplace. He expertly navigates the dense crowd, apologizing to people as he bumps past them. He firmly holds her small hand, ensuring she doesn't get lost in the chaotic street. Verivera explains the town's specialty is a dish called no-noshi, piquing her curiosity further. Excited, she says she can't wait, and Oguto gives her an affectionate pat on the head. A sudden, fleeting memory of the kind fortune teller flashes through her mind for a moment. Noticing her sudden silence, Verivera asks if something is wrong, but she quickly dismisses it. Looking over the lively food stalls, she claims she was just thinking about how hungry she is. They arrive at a bustling outdoor eatery, a popular spot filled with adventurers enjoying their meals. Savory nonoshi skewers sizzle over the hot grill, filling the air with a delicious aroma. The vendor spots Captain Oguto, calling out a familiar greeting to her regular customer. Oguto playfully jokes that Ivy is his cute child, leaving her and Vera completely flustered. Vera quickly corrects him, properly introducing Ivy as an adventurer to the friendly vendor. The vendor, Tagura, introduces herself and her skewer stand, complimenting Ivy on being a cute adventurer. Without hesitation, Oguto confidently places a large order for 10 of the delicious-looking skewers. Ivy's eyes widen in absolute amazement at the sheer size of the massive meat skewers. Oguto confidently assumes she can eat 10, but she frantically denies being able to handle that much. After some thought, she timidly suggests that she can probably only handle 2 or 3. Oguto is comically appalled by her small appetite, declaring that 2 or 3 is far too little. She protests that the skewers are simply too big, while Oguto laments that she is still small. Vera points out that Oguto is forgetting the massive size difference between them and a small child. Tagura interrupts their bickering, announcing that the captain's massive order is finally ready. Vera sensibly tells the vendor to split the order into portions of 7 and 3. The vendor skillfully wraps up the smaller portion for Ivy to take with her on the go. With a gentle smile, she hands the neatly wrapped package of warm food to a grateful Ivy. Holding her precious meal, Ivy happily waves goodbye to the kind and generous vendor. She sincerely thanks them for the meal, and a chastised Oguto admits the trouble was his fault. A moment of tense silence passes between the two captains, as the day's chaos finally settles. The captains apologize as duty calls, asking if she will be all right on her own now. Clutching her gift, she happily wishes the captains well as they finally part ways. With a final, grateful wave, she watches them depart into the bustling city streets. The two captains share a knowing smile, pleased with their successful and friendly interaction. As she walks away, one of them quietly remarks on what a nice and polite kid she is. She hurries back toward the camp, a bright, happy blush still warming her cheeks. A gentle smile graces her face, completely overwhelmed by all the unexpected kindness. Surrounded by a floral aura, she feels a profound sense of peace and belonging in the lively camp. She returns to her small tent, her personal sanctuary in the sprawling adventurer's square. Inside, she prepares a warm drink, a simple comfort after the day's many chaotic events. Curled up contentedly, she pats her very full stomach, completely satisfied with her meal. Feeling warm and drowsy, she changes her clothes, ready to rest after the long day. With a sleepy expression, she admits to herself that she ate far too much of the specialty skewers. She then realizes she was so full and distracted that she completely forgot to make her mousetraps. The next morning, she greets Sora, slightly regretting that she didn't save a skewer for dinner. Sitting outside her tent with Sora, she happily resolves to work hard for the day. As they prepare to leave for the forest, Sora vibrates gently in her hands with anticipation. Trusting her companion's calm reaction, she feels safe from hidden dangers like the Trent. Venturing into the woods, she knows she needs to earn more money to prepare for the coming winter. She finds a promising spot in a small clearing and begins to set up her new traps. However, her progress is quickly halted as she discovers one of her trap mechanisms is broken. Finding yet another broken trap, she realizes this is a frequent problem in this forest. The memory of the tasty Noshishi meat returns, making her wonder if that animal is the culprit. Seeing her rabbit trap is also destroyed, she reasons the local specialty must be abundant here. Dejected, she decides to wash her clothes before returning to camp to build more traps. While doing laundry, she hopes that simply increasing the number of traps will solve her problem. Her peaceful work is interrupted by a sudden, faint sparkle of light from the woods. To her surprise, the majestic Adandara steps into the clearing, its gaze fixed upon her. The massive beast approaches her as she stands near one of her now useless broken traps. It comes to a stop right beside her, observing her with a calm, intelligent expression. Once again, the powerful creature presents her with a massive pile of freshly caught prey. Completely overwhelmed by its kindness, she timidly asks if the generous gift is for her. With a bright, joyful smile, she embraces the massive beast in a heartfelt hug of gratitude. She muses that while its face is a bit scary, she finds the creature incredibly cute. Continuing the hug, she pats the Adandara affectionately, cherishing this strange new friendship. Later, she sits by the riverbank, her clean clothes hanging to dry on a nearby branch. The Adandara playfully nudges her, snapping her out of her thoughts and back to the task at hand. After a lot of hard work, she finally finishes preparing and wrapping all the meat. Following her usual routine, she carefully digs a hole to bury the leftover skin and bones. She decides that any imperfectly wrapped meat will be for her own meals if it cannot be sold. With her preparations finally complete, she looks on with a determined expression, ready for her next move. The Adandara rests peacefully, with one of the tiny slimes napping comfortably on its head. Sora also sleeps cozily beside the massive beast, forming an unlikely and heartwarming pair. As the Adandara watches, she gently tries to wake her companion for their trip into town. However, the massive beast playfully places its paw over Sora, preventing it from leaving. With an energetic bounce, Sora wriggles free from under the paw. Rejoining its tamer, she thanks the Adandara for all its help, sincerely telling it not to overwork itself. Waving a fond farewell, she watches the majestic creature disappear back into the dense forest. Walking with Sora, a gentle smile graces her face as she reflects on the strange encounter. Her thoughtful expression quickly shifts to one of concern as she notices Sora's strange behavior. The small slime vibrates with an unusual energy, bouncing on the ground in a peculiar rhythm. She watches with a pensive look, trying to decipher the meaning behind its strange movements. Sora then happily gives chase to a butterfly, its playful bouncing leaving her completely baffled. Later at the butcher's, she earns a grand total of 925 dal for her various successful hunts. The butcher thanks her for the sale, but gently points out a small mistake she made with the pigeon. His wife reassures her it's fine, but then confuses her by asking about the missing bones. A man explains that the bones are valuable and can be processed to be sold to a pharmacist. A shot of the tranquil riverbank highlights the location of her small but costly mistake. She chides herself for being wasteful, realizing the bones could have been made into valuable soup. Taking a large bite of a nopuna fruit, she finds a small moment of comfort in its sweet taste. She then expertly ties the rest of the foraged fruits into a neat bundle for her journey. She realizes the nopuna fruit lathers like soap, perfect for getting completely clean. Using the fruit, she vigorously scrubs her hands, creating a surprising amount of foam. The natural soap proves effective, allowing her to wash away all the accumulated grime. After cleaning herself, she knows she must find food and prepare to continue her journey. Happily washing her long hair, she considers cutting it as Sora looks on with bubbly curiosity. She then enjoys a peaceful, refreshing moment by the river, surrounded by floating soap bubbles. The next day, she returns to the impressive, walled town, ready for whatever comes next. However, as she makes her way through the streets, one of the guards suddenly calls out to her. She stops near the imposing town gate, wondering what the guard could possibly want this time. The guard confirms her identity, his friendly voice echoing from the gatehouse as he approaches. He explains that her reward has been decided, and the captain sent him to escort her to the station. Completely surprised by the news, she realizes she had entirely forgotten about the promised reward. Upon arriving at the bustling station, a smiling Captain Oguto apologizes for the sudden summons. She offers a cheerful good morning, and he waves back, happy to see the young adventurer again. The warm, knowing stares of the other guards in the station leave her feeling incredibly flustered. Uncomfortable with the overly familiar attention, she follows the captain, eager to escape the stares. She sits awkwardly across from the captain, unable to relax under the watchful eyes of his men. He graciously pours her a cup of warm tea, trying to put the nervous young adventurer at ease. She politely thanks him as he takes a moment to review some official documents before him. While she sips her tea, he finally reveals her substantial reward, 2 ladal and 3 gidal. Completely stunned by the massive sum, she can only sputter in utter disbelief. She questions the reward, realizing with a start that a radal is a valuable gold coin. The captain asks if she is surprised, and she admits she expected much less. He explains that while that's normally true, 2 of the captured criminals were wanted for murder. Her eyes widen in absolute shock as the full gravity of the situation begins to sink in. She lets out a cry of disbelief, completely floored by the terrifying new information. During interrogation, one of the criminals confessed that someone in their group had killed before. The man had been threatened into silence by the dangerous murderer within his own party. A flashback shows the guards diligently comparing the suspects to various wanted posters. They discovered a match with a wanted man, but the name led them to a missing persons report. The captain asks if she remembers the tallest man, and she confirms he was the most frightening. The grim investigation revealed he had likely killed the man whose identity he had stolen. Further investigation implicated the woman as well, as they couldn't risk using their real names. Leaning back, the captain mentions the difficult investigation, and she asks about the high reward. He confirms the guild had placed large bounties on the heads of the two wanted murderers. A breakdown reveals the total reward came from the bounties, and additional rewards for the criminals. She worries about not being in the guild, but he reassures her it's not needed for a bounty. The reality hits her that she was targeted by dangerous criminals with bounties on their heads. Oguto explains the murderers will be enslaved for life, and the others for a long time. He kindly tells her she can finally rest easy, and she quietly agrees, feeling a sense of closure. She explains the confirmation took so long because the town's skilled fortune teller was absent. The captain questions why the fortune teller's presence would have expedited the process. He smiles, explaining that people with the divination skill possess the unique ability to judge others. He elaborates that divination skill levels range from detecting lies to judging crimes and identifying culprits. Ivy learns that Ultra has a 2-star skill, powerful enough to determine the nature of crimes committed. He seems confused about her unregistered status, but Ivy reflects that the fortune teller never discussed work. Ivy finally confesses that she actually ran away from Latomi because her family was close to the village mayor. Overcome with emotion, he listens as she quietly explains. Her family told her she wasn't needed. Outraged, the captain questions the feudal lord's inaction, a term Ivy doesn't seem to understand. A flashback reveals the feudal lord and the corrupt village mayor are closely associated with each other. She's then advised that as a runaway, she should wait until she's an adult to register with the guild. The captain warns that guilds sometimes report runaways, a risk she can't afford given her village's situation. When asked for her age, she quietly reveals that she is 8 years old, turning 9 next month. He is completely shocked by how young she is, finding it incredible that she has survived alone. Suddenly getting flustered, the captain realizes they have gotten completely sidetracked from their main purpose. Remembering his task, he finally presents her with the substantial reward money in a formal case. She awkwardly tries to put the large coins into her small bag, fumbling with the new wealth. Still flustered by the massive reward, she continues to struggle with securing the money in her pouch. In a moment of panic, she quickly shoves the overflowing money pouch behind her back. The captain watches with a surprised expression as she tries to hide her awkwardness from him. The captain then suggests she make an account at the guild, a proposal that leaves her confused. She voices her concern about needing to register, and he correctly assumes she's worried about carrying money. However, he surprises her by explaining that her assumption about needing to register is incorrect. He clarifies that while registration is needed at the Adventurers Guild, the Commerce Guild is different. With a determined smile, the captain confidently assures her that he can help solve her problem. While walking through town, he reveals one can deposit money at the Commerce Guild without registering. He further explains that registration, requiring a blood sample, is only necessary to conduct business. Since the Commerce Guild is only 10 years old, its services are not yet widely known. This new information makes her realize why so few people know about its unique policies. Lost in her thoughts, she almost walks the wrong way before being gently redirected by a stranger. Arriving at the impressive guild building, she feels a surge of excitement about getting an account. He explains the guild was first created to protect merchants from powerful crime syndicates. Over time, it became so influential that registration is now mandatory for business in major cities. Its influence continues to spread, and Ivy recalls seeing a similar building on her travels. With a blush, she realizes she had mistaken the separate Adventurers Guild for the same organization. A nearby man confirms her mistake, pointing out that even the signs on the buildings are different. Observing a merchant registering, She learns they must declare what goods they intend to sell. They step into the grand main hall, a bustling space filled with merchants and officials. She then marvels at a long corridor lined with numerous identical doors for private consultations. The captain calls out, gesturing for her to follow him towards the correct room for her deposit. Inside, a woman named Rugelet greets Captain Ogudo, who states his intention to open an account. The captain quickly clarifies that the new account is not going to be for himself. Rugelet then turns to Ivy with a warm smile, calling her adorable as they exchange pleasantries. With the introductions complete, the guild official begins to explain the account creation process. She reveals that new members receive a free plate, but a replacement will cost 500 Dal. When told of the yearly fee, Ivy mentions the 4 gold coins she's carrying makes her nervous. Confirming she needs the account, the captain asks if the first year's fee must be paid immediately. The official becomes flustered, suddenly realizing she has forgotten to mention an important detail. Ivy breathes a sigh of relief upon learning that the first year is exempt from the administration fee. With all the terms now clarified, Rugelet formally asks if she wishes to open an account. Ivy eagerly agrees, reaching out with a determined expression to accept the official documents. She takes the paperwork from the guild official, ready to complete her registration. Moving to a writing desk, she is told that someone can assist her if she is unable to write. However, she confidently picks up the quill and begins to neatly inscribe her name on the form. A look of focused concentration appears on her face as she continues filling out the document. She then starts to fill in her place of birth, using the script she learned long ago. The captain suddenly intervenes, telling her she doesn't need to write that specific information. He offers her a kind, reassuring smile, letting her know it's all right to leave it blank. Nodding in understanding, she diligently continues to complete the rest of the required sections. With the form finally complete, she hands the document back to the smiling guild official. The guild official looks over the document, her expression thoughtful as she processes the details. Captain Oguto explains that due to issues with her village chief, Ivy's birthplace information will remain blank. Accepting the explanation, Rugelet calmly agrees and begins to process the account application. Ivy watches in surprise, noting that the official didn't ask any follow-up questions about her past. He pats her head, revealing a law was created to protect runaways by only requiring their name and age. This policy was enacted to stop feudal lords from seizing assets after discovering a runaway's hometown. However, he clarifies that even with this law, she still needs someone to vouch for her. The voucher must be a person who is knowledgeable about the current conditions of her home village. He then proudly proclaims that someone like him, who deals with information, is the perfect voucher. Her eyes fill with sparkling admiration as she realizes the depth of his support and kindness. Looking up at him gratefully, she asks if the situation in her hometown is truly that dire. The next step requires her to place a single drop of blood onto a magical verification orb. She is instructed to carefully insert her finger into a small indentation on the orb's surface. A tiny needle pricks her finger, and she is warned to bear with the brief moment of pain. With a determined expression and a thumbs up, she completes the blood sample registration without issue. A burst of magical particles erupts from the orb, scattering throughout the room. The sparkling energy then forms a magical screen, displaying her name and age for everyone to see. Completely amazed by the magical display, a bright blush of wonder spreads across her face. Rugelet then presents her with her brand new account plate, which she thankfully accepts. With her account officially open, the captain then begins to explain the deposit process. Having successfully opened her account, she beams with joy as magical particles fill the air. The captain then leads her to a secure room, explaining this is where transactions take place. He points to a small window on the door, instructing her to knock a few times for service. He details the process, placing the plate and money on a tray for deposits, and giving the plate for withdrawals. After the explanation, he confirms that she understands the procedure, to which she quietly agrees. With a determined look, she carefully places her new account plate onto the transaction tray. The plate immediately responds, emitting a brilliant burst of magical light and sparkling energy. A screen materializes, displaying today's date as her account opening date, leaving her in awe. The captain can't help but chuckle at her serious expression, causing her to blush with embarrassment. He playfully encourages her, saying it's finally time to deposit some of her hard-earned money. Reassuringly, he tells her to ask for help if needed, promising to wait just outside the door. As she approaches, the small security window on the transaction door slides open with a click. She knocks on the window, and when a clerk appears, she nervously states her request to make a deposit. The official instructs her to place her money and plate on the tray, making her pause thoughtfully. With her heart pounding, she carefully places a large sum of cash and coins onto the tray. Taking a deep breath, she pushes the tray containing her life savings through the window slot. The clerk takes the tray, and the window slides shut, leaving her to wait with a racing heart. Behind the window, the clerk calmly and efficiently processes her very first deposit. Incredibly quickly, the clerk returns her plate and tells her the transaction is complete. She then picks up her plate from the now empty tray, her transaction successfully finished. Her account plate glows brightly on the tray, awaiting the final step of the transaction process. A magical screen materializes, displaying the transaction details that she must now carefully verify. With a puzzled expression, she stares at the screen, trying to understand her new remaining balance. The display confirms her total funds, and the clerk asks if there is a problem with the amount. She quickly confirms that everything is correct, offering her thanks to the helpful guild official. Leaving the window, she feels the display method was strange. Though she can't quite place why, she carefully holds her new, pristine account plate in her hands for the very first time. A gentle, happy smile graces her face as she clutches the plate, a symbol of her newfound security. Overwhelmed with emotion, she looks up at Captain Oguto with tears of gratitude for all his help. His mission now successfully completed, the captain stands proudly on the steps of the Commerce Guild. As they leave the grand building, she offers her sincere thanks, which he casually dismisses. Their peaceful departure is suddenly interrupted as Vice Captain Veravera's stern voice calls out from behind. Veravera appears with another guard, immediately scolding the captain for leaving without informing them. The vice captain continues his public lecture, causing a small scene to form in the busy street. As the two men begin to argue, Ivy finds herself caught in the middle of their chaotic bickering. The captain quickly apologizes for his actions, but Veravera insists that it is not his fault. Ivy looks on with a bewildered expression, unsure how to react to the escalating public confrontation. To her surprise, two more familiar guards appear and offer her a cheerful, friendly greeting. One of the guards joins the lecture, accusing the captain of pushing his duties onto his subordinates. The other guard agrees, confirming the captain neglected his work, making Ivy realize it's her fault. The chaotic bickering continues as Veravera scolds the captain for running away from a difficult noble. Veravera then apologizes for his outburst and suggests they leave, but another guard insists the issue isn't over. A flashback reveals the noble complained for an hour until Veravera finally grew tired and put him to sleep. Ivy nervously asks what he did to the noble, a question that seems to make the captain angry. Veravera calmly claims the noble was simply tired, but Oguto insists he was a very important person. This shocking revelation completely shatters Ivy's image of the calm and composed Vice Captain Veravera. The other guards notice her distress, pointing out that she looks incredibly troubled by their public argument. A guard apologizes as duty calls, and a flustered Ivy insists she heard nothing, thanking them again. Veravera also apologizes, admitting that the stressful encounter with the noble had frayed his nerves. Internally, she is now completely terrified, thinking that Vice Captain Veravera is far too scary for her. Noticing her fear, Veravera gently reaches out his gloved hand toward her head. He gives her a surprisingly affectionate pat, a kind gesture that seems to calm her racing heart. With a final pat, she realizes that the lives of a captain and vice captain are not easy at all. Later, she returns to the relative peace and quiet of the sprawling adventurer's square. She finally arrives back at her own small tent, her personal sanctuary within the bustling camp. Inside, Sora and the smaller slimes bounce around happily, welcoming her back to their new home. She lies down to rest, completely content while surrounded by her quietly bouncing slime companions. Cuddling close to Sora, she finds a profound sense of peace and comfort in their shared space. Looking at her account plate, she feels that this simple item proves her existence as a real person. Overcome with emotion, she clutches the precious plate to her chest as a single tear falls. Lying in her tent, her eyes suddenly snap open as a startling realization dawns on her. In a moment of comical panic, she sits up, exclaiming that she completely forgot something important. Outside her tent, she begins to carefully sort through the valuable nopuna fruit she had gathered. Remembering she picked them that morning, she starts the meticulous process of peeling each individual fruit. With great care, she arranges the separated skins on a large cloth to dry in the open air. The tedious process will take 2 or 3 days, leaving her tired but determined to create valuable powder. To pass the time, she decides to make more traps, hoping to increase her funds while the skins dry. Her planning is suddenly interrupted by a strange noise from Sora, who is peeking out from her bag. With a gentle smile, she correctly guesses that her small, ever-hungry slime companion wants a meal. She lays out a feast of various red and blue potions, a true buffet for her happy friend. She embraces Sora affectionately as it happily devours the entire meal in a sparkling display of light. After its meal, she begins planning their next journey, asking Sora for its input on needed supplies. While mixing some ingredients, she decides that in addition to their current stock, she wants more fruit. Sora eagerly agrees, adding that it will need as many potions as she can possibly carry for the trip. Her companion lets out a happy, musical chirp, seemingly pleased with their shared travel plans. Filled with renewed energy, she declares her goal to make 10 traps each for both mice and rabbits. One by one, she continues to carefully place the remaining nopuna skins in neat rows on the mat. Noticing the darkening sky, she worries about rain and decides to move the precious skins inside her tent. The bustling adventure camp continues its daily routine under the watchful eye of the town walls. Later, she heads to the communal kitchen to prepare a warm meal alongside the other adventurers. She enjoys a quiet meal outside her tent, taking in the peaceful atmosphere of the camp. Her simple but satisfying meal is laid out before her, with a curious Sora watching nearby. Sitting contentedly outside her tent, she savors a warm cup of tea, enjoying the quiet moment. Later, she takes a moment to clean up, with a happy Sora floating beside her in the water. Her magical companion seems to wish her sweet dreams as they finish their peaceful evening routine. The next day, she enjoys her breakfast while continuing her work. A strangely shaped Sora nearby. She carefully checks on the progress of her drying nopuna skins, her first big project. As she leaves the camp, she is surprised to run into 2 familiar guards on their morning patrol. One of the guards offers her a warm good morning, holding what looks like a report. His more stoic companion simply comments on how early she is up and about as always. With a happy smile, she continues her walk through the bustling town streets, feeling more accepted. Her cheerful walk is interrupted as another familiar voice calls out, commenting on her early start. She greets Vice Captain Vera and curiously asks if he got into any trouble after yesterday's chaos. He cheerfully admits he threw all the blame onto Captain Ogudo, looking completely refreshed from the ordeal. Later, she ventures deep into the forest, searching for the perfect spot to set her new traps. However, she finds that the area is filled with the tracks of large animals running around. She came to set traps for small game, but realizes the larger animals will interfere with her plans. Suddenly, a look of alert surprise crosses her face as she senses a familiar presence nearby. She looks around the empty clearing, wondering if she had simply imagined the feeling. Sora floating inquisitively. Unseen, the majestic Adendara silently follows her through the dense undergrowth of the forest. The majestic Adendara suddenly emerges from the trees, with a surprised Sora floating nearby. With a bright, happy smile, she warmly greets the beast, which offers an affectionate nuzzle. The massive creature then purposefully strides past her, its powerful form moving with grace. As it begins to depart into the woods, she quickly calls out, asking her new friend to wait. The creature pauses its departure, letting out a soft, gentle purr as it glances back. Sora and its smaller counterparts then dash forward, making her wonder what is happening. She follows them through the dense forest, curious about their sudden and mysterious destination. Their journey soon brings them to a quiet, secluded clearing beside a calm river. To her utter amazement, she finds a massive pile of fresh prey, a gift from the Adandara. Confused, she asks the beast if the food is for itself. Not understanding the gesture, she insists it has already thanked her enough and doesn't need to worry about providing for her. Her words seem to wound the majestic creature, as large tears well up in its eyes. Seeing its sadness, she quickly changes her mind and happily decides to accept the generous offering. A deep, embarrassed blush spreads across her face, completely overwhelmed by the creature's kindness. Overcome with emotion, she tries to process the strange but incredibly heartwarming situation before her. She accepts the gift, but insists this will be the last time, and the beast seems to agree. Her massive haul at the butcher shop earns her over 1,000 dal, surprising the owners again. With her business concluded, she excitedly announces it's time to return to the forest to set traps. Back in the woods, she reflects on the Adandara's incredible hunting prowess and generosity. However, she realizes that all the best trapping spots now show traces of the large animal's presence. Frustrated by the lack of safe spots, she finds herself completely unable to decide where to work. Her concentration is shattered as a guard suddenly appears, startling her with a friendly question. The guard, Gunsbell, laughs off her surprise, explaining that he is simply patrolling the area. She explains her plan to set traps, but he immediately warns her that this particular place is dangerous. He finds her reliance on traps an unusual hunting method, leaving her momentarily flustered by his comment. She then suggests moving further downstream, knowing there are too many dangerous Nonoshi around here. Heeding her knowledge, he agrees, but sternly reminds her to return to the village before sunset. With a final wave, the guards depart, leaving her once again to the solitude of the forest. Alone at last, she breathes a heavy sigh of relief, happy to be free from the unwanted attention. Her moment of peace is cut short as her eyes suddenly widen with a new, startling realization. In a flash, a powerful gust of wind rushes past, sending a shower of leaves into the air. To her complete shock, a second Adandara suddenly appears, joining her familiar companion in the clearing. She thanks her friend for hiding Sora in a tree, realizing the danger she had narrowly avoided. Admitting she was careless, she embraces the beast, knowing it would have been targeted if found. The majestic creature responds with a warm, affectionate nuzzle, seemingly forgiving her mistake. With a nervous laugh, she asks if she can still set up her traps before the sun finally sets. Her search for a new location then leads her along the winding path of a quiet, flowing river. While she forages for supplies, the Adandara keeps a watchful, protective eye from a safe distance. As the woods grow dim, she realizes with a start that it is beginning to get dark. Suddenly, a loud splash erupts from the dense undergrowth, making her cry out in alarm. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the darkness, the sign of a sudden, violent impact. She is sent flying backward by the force, landing hard on the forest floor in a shower of magical particles. Remembering the guard's warning, she realizes with terror that the dangerous Nonoshi are active at night. Driven by pure fear, she immediately breaks into a desperate, frantic sprint away from the danger. She recalls their massive size as she is tackled, a terrifying display of the creature's raw power. The memory of her panicked flight becomes a blur of motion as she races toward safety. Her desperate escape finally leads her to the relative safety of the massive, fortified town gate. Back in the present, she quietly processes the terrifying memory of her narrow escape from the forest. The camp manager, Roygord, understands her exhaustion after hearing about the dangerous Nonoshi from Gunsbell. She explains that her panicked state upon returning had greatly worried the concerned gatekeepers. He praises her for making it back safely, reminding her that monsters also roam the woods after dark. Finally feeling relaxed in her tent after the ordeal, she realizes she is now incredibly hungry. The next morning, she sets her traps in the forest under the watchful eye of the Adandara. She recalls warning the beast to be careful, a sentiment that was met with a happy, affectionate nuzzle. With her new routine established, she prepares her catch and successfully sells it at the local butcher. The butcher's wife notes her smaller haul, and she explains she only caught 3 rabbits and a mouse. She earns 385 dal, but laments that half of her traps were destroyed by the larger animals. While she counts her money, the butcher's wife offers a grim warning about the upcoming Nonoshi mating season. She learns the animals become more violent and may even approach the village during the day. This confirms what she had overheard from injured adventurers, who warned of animals on the main roads. With her current map, she worries that the upcoming mating season will make traveling too dangerous. Because of this new danger, she decides she needs a more accurate map for her journey. Her search leads her through the bustling streets of the town, where she browses a local shop. Inside a bookstore, she is surprised when the old craftsman who sold her the tent recognizes her. A shopkeeper greets her, and she confirms to the craftsman that he sold her the comfortable tent. She explains her quest, telling him she's been searching various bookstores for a good map. Her simple request seems to catch the gruff old craftsman slightly by surprise. He correctly deduces her intentions, asking if she is planning to leave the village soon. With a determined smile, she confirms her plans, stating her desire to travel even further. The old man looks on with a quiet, knowing expression, understanding her resolve. He suggests checking the guilds for maps, asking if she meant the Adventurers or Commerce Guild. He reasons that both guilds would have maps, since they are essential for merchants and adventurers. She decides to go to the Commerce Guild, as she also needs to deposit more money. As she prepares to leave, he casually asks if her new tent is working out for her. She says the tent is great, but admits there is something else she wants, piquing his curiosity. She then asks if he has any bamboo tubes that can be used for storing water. The old craftsman has a sudden flash of realization, as if remembering an old project. He leads her to his personal workshop, a rustic building on the edge of town. Inside, he presents her with a massive pile of finished bamboo tubes, shocking her with the amount. She asks to buy them, but he generously says they aren't for sale, and she can have them. Touched by his generosity, she asks if he is sure, and he confirms she can take them all. As she tries to protest his kindness, he firmly cuts her off, insisting she accept his offer. A gentle blush appears on his face as he explains that the gift is a farewell present. His kind words bring a bright, genuinely happy smile to her face, a rare sight. Inspecting her new gifts, she marvels at how beautifully crafted the bamboo tubes are. She offers her most sincere thanks for his incredible generosity, and he simply laughs in response. She explains the tubes will let her carry more water, making her travels much easier, which pleases him. Her plans suddenly change as she remembers she must first make a trip to the town's dump. Before heading out, she needs to return to her tent to gather all the items for disposal. Arriving at the massive dump with Sora, she is once again impressed by its sheer size. She begins her work, discarding a broken tube and some old clothes that she has outgrown. Next, she disposes of a handful of Nopuna seeds, while Sora curiously watches the process. She is delighted to find the dump full of good potions, a rare luxury compared to other villages. Her scavenging proves successful as she finds 2 magic bags and a small pouch among the refuse. Deciding to take them as spares, she adds them to her collection as Sora happily consumes nearby potions. Her companion lets out a small, satisfied burp, seemingly energized by its meal of discarded potions. She continues gathering useful supplies, with Sora chirping excitedly as it watches her work. Her scavenging is interrupted as she cries out, realizing Sora has gotten stuck in the junk pile. Admitting she was distracted, she rushes over and gently frees her companion from the debris. Cradling Sora, she resolves to be more careful, knowing she must keep her unique slime hidden. With her new supplies in hand, she happily cradles Sora as she leaves the craftsman's workshop. Upon her return to the village, one of the familiar gatekeepers offers her a warm welcome back. Following the craftsman's advice, she heads directly to the Grand Commerce Guild building to find a map. At the deposit window, she places a large pile of coins on the tray for her second transaction. A new clerk takes her deposit, politely asking her to wait while the transaction is processed. A brilliant flash of magical light signals that her deposit is being successfully recorded. The clerk quickly returns her plate, asking her to confirm the details of the completed transaction. She holds her glowing plate, watching as the magical display begins to materialize once again. A magical screen appears, and she notes with satisfaction that the process was incredibly fast this time. The screen confirms her new balance, and a gentle, satisfied smile spreads across her face. As she leaves the secure area, the clerk offers a formal thank you for her continued business. She mentally calculates her remaining pocket money, feeling proud of her financial management skills. With her finances secure, she turns her attention to her next objective, acquiring a new map. She arrives at a counter displaying a wide variety of detailed maps available for purchase. Looking over the options, she is completely amazed to discover that such intricate maps even exist. The largest map is incredibly detailed, even listing the specific minerals found in various forests. She realizes the second largest map must be for merchants, as it shows each town's most famous products. This map also clearly marks rivers and lakes, and even estimates travel times between villages. The smallest map focuses on the local area, highlighting monster and animal habitats for hunters. Faced with so many useful options, she finds herself struggling to decide which map she needs more. Her resolve hardens as she decides she must get even further away from her hometown, Latomi. A memory of the fortune teller's kind words surfaces, guiding her to travel forward when she could no longer stay. The fortune teller had shown her a map, advising her to cross through a town named Otorwa. Her ultimate destination, she recalls, was a large town located very near the capital city. Her thoughts are interrupted by a sudden commotion as a loud cough echoes through the crowded street. The persistent cough comes from a small, sickly-looking child who appears to be in great distress. The child's mother looks on with deep worry as Ivy stares, startled by the sudden familiar scene. This triggers a memory of when she caught a cold, weakly reassuring the fortune teller that she was all right. The memory continues, the fortune teller's expression growing serious as she looks up at the sky. The kind woman had then told her there was something important she needed to discuss immediately. Back in the present, she is shocked to learn the detailed maps at the guild cost 500 dal. Torn between the expensive options, she anxiously tries to decide which map is best for her journey. A nearby guild official seems to have a sudden, brilliant idea while observing her dilemma. Later, she returns to her spot in the adventurer's camp, walking past the other tents. She arrives back at her tent, ready to continue processing the valuable Nopuna skins she gathered. She struggles to lift a heavy rock, needing something to weigh down her drying mat. With large rocks in place, she successfully secures the mat to keep the skins from blowing away. Now that the skins are dry, she begins the tedious process of grinding them into a fine powder. She works diligently, crushing the dried skins with a small stone in the quiet afternoon. The sun begins to set, casting a warm glow across the sky as her day's work continues. She continues her diligent work, grinding the dried Nopuna skins into a fine powder. With her work finally done, she stores the finished powder in a jar as Sora looks on. She reflects that while the process is simple, grinding the skins takes a very long time. With her preparations almost complete, she plans to gather potions for Sora before they leave tomorrow. She also reminds Sora that she needs to buy dried meat for their upcoming journey. Her words send Sora into a burst of pure, unadulterated excitement for their next adventure. Sora suddenly leaps into the air with surprising force, startling her with its newfound energy. She fondly recalls its last clumsy jump, happy to see that its jumping skills have improved. The next morning, a friendly guard sees her off, wishing her well as she departs the camp. She happily waves a fond farewell, beginning her final day in the welcoming town. At the butcher shop, she announces her departure and her desire to thank the captains for their help. The owner is surprised, asking why she didn't go out hunting on her last day. Ivy explains that instead of selling, she has come to purchase dried meat for her journey. The woman expresses her disappointment, clearly having valued Ivy's consistent supply of fresh meat. She then praises Ivy's excellent butchering skills, which resulted in high-quality dried meat. The butcher's wife adds that her customers were also very grateful and enjoyed the products. Overwhelmed by the unexpected praise, a happy blush spreads across her surprised face. Deeply touched by their kind words, she offers a sincere and heartfelt thank you. The woman then asks if she'd like a large or small bag, remembering her previous big purchase. Ivy quietly admits to herself that her appetite has been growing more and more lately. After a moment of thought, she decides against the large bag, changing her mind at the last second. Instead, she requests 2 smaller bags of dried meat, costing a total of 600 dal. As a parting gift, the butcher then generously offers her a small sack as a thank you. She is overjoyed to find it's a full bowl of dried meat scraps, thanking them profusely. The couple offers a final warning about the dangers ahead, and she waves a grateful goodbye. From behind their stall, the kind butcher and his wife wave a fond farewell as she departs. Clutching her newly purchased supplies, a gentle, heartwarming smile spreads across her face. With her preparations finally complete, she begins her walk through the familiar town streets. Her walk is interrupted as a familiar voice suddenly calls out, announcing they have found her. A hand then gently pats her on the head, a kind gesture that catches her by surprise. Looking up, she sees Captain Oguto waving enthusiastically from a distance as he calls her name. He finally catches up to her, a look of sincere concern etched onto his face. The captain offers her a simple greeting, and she looks up at him, still slightly startled. She blushes with embarrassment, realizing the old craftsman must have told him about his loud search. With a serious expression, he then asks if she is truly planning to continue her journey. He confirms her next destination is Otorwa, and she offers her sincere thanks for everything. As they walk, he unexpectedly suggests that she could stay and make a home in the village. His surprising offer makes her pause, her hands clasped tightly as she considers his words. A moment of heavy silence passes between them as she stares blankly, lost in deep thought. After a brief moment of hesitation, she finally comes to a complete stop, her decision made. Clasping her hands tightly, she carefully considers the captain's unexpected and kind offer to stay. She admits that while the village is a wonderful place, she cannot accept his generous proposal. Looking over the bustling town, she begins to explain what the kind fortune teller once told her. She reveals her mentor's wish for her to see the world, a desire she now wants to fulfill. The captain agrees with this wisdom, understanding from his own experience as an adventurer. His comment leaves her completely flustered, realizing he is like a senior traveler to her. She reflects on how the fortune teller was the one who taught her all her essential survival skills. To honor her memory, she explains her plan to travel to the town next to the capital city. With a gentle, determined smile, she quietly confirms her resolve to continue her long journey. Before leaving, she asks about the vice captain, hoping to thank him for his help as well. The captain becomes flustered, waving his hands as he claims that Vera is currently busy with work. She gives him a knowing, skeptical look, sensing there is more to his sudden panicked explanation. Worried, she asks if he is going to get in trouble again, but he quickly dismisses her concern. He tries to justify his actions by claiming that training his subordinates is part of his job. Understanding the situation, she simply asks him to pass on her sincere thanks to the vice captain. With a bright, confident smile and a wink, he promises that he will relay her message. She offers a final, genuinely happy smile, deeply grateful for all his unexpected kindness and support. As they part ways, she offers her thanks one last time, looking up at the town's tall buildings. Her heartfelt farewell is met with the bustling sights and sounds of the lively marketplace. He offers some final advice, saying she can stay if she finds trustworthy people. She sits alone, admitting to herself that she can't reveal the truth about being starless. The fortune teller's wise words echo in her mind, reminding her that secrets eventually surface. She recalls being told that having friends who will fight for you is important when secrets are revealed. However, the captain's advice warns that keeping secrets can also completely destroy a person's trust. Gazing at the warm food, she contemplates telling Captain Oguto the truth, but remains hesitant. She reflects on how much he worries about her, especially regarding her difficult past in Latomi. Even though he is someone she can count on, a dark sense of fear holds her back. The traumatic memory of being cast out as starless resurfaces, a pain she can never forget. She then remembers the fortune teller's gentle encouragement to see the world and broaden her horizons. Her mentor had also advised her to take her time on her journey to grow stronger. The kind woman had assured her that by following this path, she would surely find her own happiness. Ivy now understands that to be happy, she cannot rush, as this world is full of different people. She quietly wonders if she can truly become stronger by trusting in her own abilities. Lying in her tent under the starry sky, she feels a deep longing to see the fortune teller again. Her moment of sadness passes, and her eyes snap open with a renewed sense of determination. Startled by her sudden movement, Sora lets out a nervous sweat drop as it looks on. With renewed purpose, she begins packing her bags, ready to continue her journey once more. As she prepares Sora's potions, she feels her sharp survival senses from her travels returning. She leans in close, gently telling Sora that today they will finally say goodbye to Latome. Sora responds with an energetic flip, a playful move that has now become a common sight. The next morning, she begins taking down her tent, preparing for her journey to Otorwa. With her camp packed up, she carefully secures her belongings, ready to depart from the village. From a distance, 2 familiar guards watch her go, quietly commenting that it is time to leave. With a bright, happy smile, she walks away from the camp, ready for her next big adventure. Before leaving, she stops to return her camp license board to Roygord and another familiar guard. He confirms she is leaving now, and she hands back the wooden board, her stay officially over. With warm smiles and a friendly wave, the 2 guards wish her a safe and successful trip. She waves a final, fond farewell as she runs towards the massive town gate to depart. Walking through the gate's archway, she finally leaves the welcoming village behind her. A gentle blush of emotion appears on her face as she reflects on her time there. Her departure is interrupted as she spots Vice Captain Vera and calls out his name. She offers her thanks, and he jokes that they are both victims of the captain's chaotic nature. With a knowing smile, she asks if he had trouble with work yesterday, and he laughs heartily. She asks what the captain said, adding that he seems to be very bad with office work. With a blush, she relays the captain's excuse that he was simply training his subordinates. Her words send Vera into a fit of pained laughter, finding the excuse completely ridiculous. He then offers a final serious warning to be careful of both beasts and people ahead. He specifically warns her of a dangerous organization that kidnaps people on the road to Otorwa. She promises to be careful as he explains the group has not been fully apprehended yet. With a kind, gentle smile, he tells her to come back anytime, promising they'll be waiting. With a bright, tearful smile, she waves goodbye, promising to return to the Kind village someday. Watching her depart, Vera reflects on the nice people she has finally been able to meet. She fondly recalls her time with the reckless but reliable captain and the gruff but kind vice captain. Her journey begins anew as she follows a winding path back into the vast, untamed wilderness. Cradling Sora, she bids a silent farewell to her new friends, promising they will meet again. Sora then lets out a happy, energetic bounce, seemingly eager to start their next adventure. She walks into a sun-dappled forest, the light creating a beautiful and serene atmosphere. Meanwhile, back in his office, an exhausted Captain Ogudo lets out a massive, weary yawn. Overwhelmed by a mountain of paperwork, he calls out to Vera, struggling to stay focused. The vice captain appears, casually asking what the massive pile of documents on his desk is. With a smug smile, Vera calmly explains that it is all the work he has been neglecting. The captain sweats nervously as Vera lets out a hearty laugh at his subordinate's despair. He tries to escape by claiming he has to go on patrol, but Vera is one step ahead. Vera reveals that he too will be working in the office all day to supervise him. Slumped over his desk in defeat, the captain admits he has been avoiding his paperwork lately. However, with a sudden burst of energy, he eagerly agrees to finally tackle the mountain of work. His expression hardens with an intense, focused determination as he prepares to begin his task. His focus is immediately broken as Vera presents him with yet another official document. Vera explains it's a request from Latome, seeking villagers wanted for theft of village property. The captain is completely shocked to find there are a full 3 pages of names on the list. The 2 captains meticulously review the extensive request documents sent from Ivy's former village. Their gloved hands trace the long list of names, discussing the implications of the chief's actions. Ogudo calls the chief crazy, but Vera explains the guilds have already rendered his request meaningless. The Commerce Guild gave Latome's leadership its lowest confidence score, warning merchants away from the village. A flashback shows the corrupt chief, who seems oblivious that his actions are asking for trouble. A guild postscript confirms they are protecting the villagers' property, meaning they will ignore the request. While reviewing the names, Vera notes with relief that Ivy's name is not on the list. However, Captain Oguto's attention is suddenly captured by a specific detail regarding another girl's name. He observes that while many families fled together, one girl on the list is marked as being alone. This leads him to conclude that Ivy is hiding a much bigger secret than just her gender. Vera agrees, theorizing this secret is likely the true reason she was forced to flee her home. Oguto feels a pang of hurt, wondering if her past trauma is simply too deep for her to trust him. They resolve to wait patiently, confident she will eventually open up to them when she is ready. Vera then angrily returns to the previous topic, questioning Oguto about how he traded his guard duty. He recalls the terrified guard who begged Oguto not to upset the vice captain again. The captain feels insulted, but Vera insists that his smiling requests are far more intimidating. With a menacing grin, Vera asks if Oguto would like to be trapped in the office forever. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Ivy follows her Adendara companion with a determined expression. With newfound resolve, she makes a firm promise to the majestic beast, ready to face her task. The scene then cuts away to the rustic assembly hall in Latomi, where several villagers are gathering. Back in Latomi, a tense group of villagers assembles, their expressions grim and worried. One man holds up a rotten Zaro fruit in despair, confronting the village chief about the failed harvest. Chaos erupts as the villagers demand an explanation, their anger and frustration boiling over. A man furiously reminds the chief that the fortune teller, Louver, always ensured a successful harvest. It's explained that the Zaro fruit's harvest window is incredibly small and difficult for anyone to predict. The chief scoffs, questioning their reliance on Louver, a comment that shocks the assembled villagers. Losing his temper completely, he furiously screams at them to be silent, asserting his authority. Fed up with his tyranny, the enraged villagers surround him, brandishing their farming tools as weapons. With grim determination, the farmers stand their ground, ready to fight for their village's survival. The chief stares in absolute shock, completely stunned by their sudden and unified rebellion. From a nearby balcony, one of his cronies shouts down, questioning their blatant disrespect. The chief then flees on horseback, callously ordering the villagers to sell the fruit at a high price. Grumbling about his troubles, he petulantly decides to raise their taxes as a form of punishment. He angrily vows to make them pay for daring to turn against his authority and question his leadership. The scene then shifts to the village's Zaro fruit orchard, where people are working. The chief's men are sent to round up anyone who has been slacking off from the harvest. Upon arriving, the chief furiously demands to know where all the other workers have gone. A subordinate explains they had warned the man's wife about the situation just 2 days prior. They reveal that a large number of villagers are leaving, a fact that deeply worries the chief. He erupts in fury, completely baffled that anyone would dare to leave during the busy season.